Null's a sharp young dude, hungry to be the strongest seeker on the planet, but he's been dealt the weakest hand, a talker class, which is practically useless. In this world, abysses open up straight to hell's front door, and on this messed up day, the matchmaking system glitched out. The next thing, Null's village is under siege by level 12 demons. The only one in the village who can put up a fight is his grandpa, a real og. He grabs his axe and tells Null to stay put while he fends off the demons until backup arrives. But Null knows the truth, there ain't no cavalry coming to save them from this mess, and fighting off all those demons solo is basically suicide. He doubts his grandpa's got it in him, but the old man promises he's got it handled. He's taken down a level 13 demon before, and people didn't call him Overdeath for nothing. Grandpa heads out and puts up a good fight, taking down a bunch of demons, but in the end, he gets worked so bad that his legs might as well be in another zip code. Null rushes to him, and Grandpa apologizes for not being strong enough to live up to his promise. He explains he didn't have a choice, it was either fight or let the village burn. That's the fate every seeker's got to face, living a life dedicated to combat. Before Grandpa dies, he asks Null if he's gonna walk the same dangerous path after seeing how rough it is. With tears in his eyes, Null swears he'll become the world's strongest seeker to honor his grandpa's legacy. Fast forward to today, Null's kept his word and is leading a team of seekers. But despite giving orders, he's far from the strongest in the squad. He's still stuck with that talker class. His crew is up against lesser vampires, annoying monsters that can't use magic but are tough as nails. To make it worse, the vampire queen can crank out new minions in no time, so they're dealing with an endless swarm. Null warns his team to stay sharp. These vampires are no joke, they're tough to kill and will keep coming even when they're half dead. Each one needs a double tap to stay down, as they push deeper into the dungeon. Walter asks Null if they can skip the vampires and head straight for the queen to wrap up the mission faster. Null shuts that down quick, telling him it's a dumb plan. They get surrounded by the vampires while trying to take on the queen, and that'd be the end of them. This mission is already a crazy tough one for a C-rank squad like theirs, so if they go charging ahead without thinking, it's a wrap for them. Walter gets the point, but he's being slick with it, saying he's only listening to Null cause he's the oh-so-important talker of the group. The thing is, as a talker, Null can hype up the team with some buff words, but his own power is trash compared to the rest, and that eats at him. Null's ready to turn around and roast Walter's ego into the ground. But before he can even get a word out, he spots a lesser vampire chilling on the ceiling, clearly scheming something. Null calls out to the squad to take cover, but right then, the vampire drops a toxic cloud, and Null's stuck right in the middle of it. Lloyd sees him in trouble and wants to run to help, but before they can make a move, the vampire attacks, knocking Tanya down hard. Walter and Lloyd try to handle the demon, but without Null's buffs, they're way weaker. Walter's practically begging Null to snap out of it and give them some orders. Hearing that, Null flashes back to the day his grandpa died, and he swears right then that he won't let anyone else fall on his watch. He pulls out his gun and fires off some shots at the demon while chugging a health potion to counter the poison. He may not have his grandpa's raw power, but that doesn't mean he's useless. It's time to prove just how clutch a talker can be. Null kicks in his talker tactician skill, boosting his squad's abilities by 25% whenever he gives them orders. Then, he hits them with his battle voice skill, cranking up their stamina and mana. With Null's buffs, the crew starts holding their own, but Tanya spots 3 more demons above, and she's losing it. Null calms her down with one of his skills, and if everything goes right, Null figures they'll take these monsters down in 74 seconds. He tells the squad to leave the lesser vampires to him and focus on the queen, prepping their strongest moves. As the lesser vampires rush him, Null uses his speech technique to yell and freeze them in place. With them stuck, he fires off an ice bullet from his magic gun, trapping them in a block of ice. But not everything goes smoothly. One of the vampires dodges the shot. Null's got 1 bullet left in the chamber, and he could freeze that last lesser vampire to save his own skin, but instead, he decides to fire it at the queen, creating a distraction and giving his crew the chance they need. Lloyd and Walter jump on the opening and hit the queen with their ultimate moves, taking her down for good. Tanya turns to Null, ready to celebrate, but what she sees freezes her in place, Null getting stabbed by the lesser vampire. But it turns out Null wasn't really stabbed. He played it smart, calculating everything perfectly to make sure he'd survive. He knew that once the queen went down, all the lesser vampires would stop moving, and he timed it out just right to avoid getting killed. With that, the team clears the dungeon, and the abyss surrounding them fades away. The squad rushes over to check on him, and while they know Null's always got a plan, they still give him grief for risking his life like that. Null can't help but think back to the day he found out he was a talker, crying his heart out because he wanted to be a warrior like his grandpa. But his grandpa told him not to sweat it regardless of his class. He believed Null had what it took to become the world's strongest seeker. He saw something special in him, a talent that could outshine anyone. Since that day, Null never let his support class hold him back. He's been dead set on becoming the strongest seeker, even if he's just a talker. Now that the mission's wrapped up, the team heads back to Atria, the capital of the Velnant Empire, to report their success. The Empire is more vulnerable to abyss attacks than other places, so they developed magical tech using materials from the demons to protect themselves. The materials they use for this tech can only be gathered by Seekers, which is why Seekers are looked up to by the public. Null became an official Seeker at 15 and moved to the capital. Knowing he couldn't go it alone, he put together a solid team: Walter, the warrior, Tanya, the healer, and Lloyd, the swordsman. He'd like to have a scout on the squad too, but overall, they're balanced. Walter notices Null's been unusually quiet and asks him if something's wrong. The crew got a reward of 5 million Phil for wrapping up the mission, so Walter asks Null if he's mad that they didn't try to get more money. Then Walter goes on, telling Null a seeker shouldn't be stressing about money so much, and his grandpa probably would have said the same thing. But actually, Null's grandpa taught him the exact opposite. Whatever you're doing, you better be getting paid top dollar, because you ain't risking your life to go home broke. So Null wanted a bigger cut for sure, and he really couldn't care less about what Walter thinks. But he's letting it slide this time. Tanya tells Walter to quit messing with Null, but Walter keeps at it, saying Null should respect him more since he's 2 years older. Null fires back, saying age don't mean a thing among Seekers, respect only comes from strength. Now, Null's starting to wonder if Walter's even worth respecting at all. Walter loses it, shouting that Null's the one who's useless, always giving orders from the back while everyone else is out there risking their lives on the front line. Null thought he had a good thing going with the team, but now he's realizing they see him as dead weight, no matter what he does for them. But before dealing with all that, he throws one last insult at Walter, ready to square up. Right before the fight kicks off, Lloyd steps in and separates them. Lloyd changes the subject, suggesting they call it a day and start splitting up the rewards. A little while later, they're all sitting by the fountain, and Tanya's complaining about how little she got after such a tough mission. Lloyd explains that after the cost of equipment and taxes, there was only 1 million Phil left, so each member gets just 250,000. He agrees it's frustrating that their funds are growing so slowly, but he's sure they'll make more cash the next time they land a big job. Null isn't so sure, pointing out that they rarely get big missions because clans snatch up all the high-profile abysses. And even when they do, there's a big risk of paying penalties if they fail to clear it. So he says it's not really a sustainable way to work. Then Null asks Lloyd how much money the team's got in their joint account. Lloyd says they've got 12.8 million saved up. So Null suggests they invest it and start their own clan. Everybody's shook when Null drops that suggestion. Lloyd tries to break it down, saying they can't pull it off, mainly because they'd need to drop 20 million just to set it up, and they don't have that kind of cash. But Null's unfazed. He's ready to toss in 7.2 million of his own money to cover the gap. He gets that it's a big move, but he's confident they'll make way more in the long run since they won't be stuck picking up scraps anymore. Lloyd then brings up another issue: they'd need a base of operations in the capital, and rent prices are crazy right now. But Null's already ahead of him. He found a cheap spot for them to rent. Then Tanya jumps in, saying they're all still C-rank rookies, so they can't possibly handle running a clan yet. But Null isn't buying that excuse. If they don't take the leap now, they'll never be ready to run one. Null's been doing his homework, learning everything about how to run a clan, so he knows what steps they gotta take. The only thing he's missing is experience, and the only way to get that is by starting a clan. It's gonna be tough, but there ain't no other way. Null's making sense, but even with all that, Lloyd's still worried. He doesn't think they'll be given any solid jobs because they haven't proven themselves trustworthy yet. That's where Lloyd's wrong. Null's sure they'll land a bunch of good jobs, and it's got nothing to do with being trustworthy. They're gonna get jobs because they're hot. This country is always looking for more seekers, and a top-tier seeker is seen as both a hero and a star, so the country will naturally show them love just for looking good. Tanya's not feeling it. She thinks that's basically selling themselves. But Walter, he's already sold on the idea. He's tired of the average life they've been living and wants to taste some fame and fortune. Tanya can't change his mind on that. So now Walter and Null are on the same page, and Null turns to Lloyd for his take as the leader. If Lloyd says no, Null's ready to bounce. He'll take his share of the savings and start a clan with somebody else because he's got a dream of becoming the strongest seeker, and nothing's gonna stop him. Lloyd gets this serious, dark look on his face. He knows he's got no choice but to agree with Null's plan, and suggests they wait a couple of days to talk about the details of starting the clan. Walter is cool with that, and Null's feeling good about getting both Tanya and Lloyd to go along with his idea, so he heads out to rest for the night. But later that day, Walter comes running to Null panicked. He's got bad news: Lloyd and Tanya have betrayed them and disappeared with all the money. After Null reads the letter, he gets the full picture. Turns out, Lloyd threw all his money into NFTs a couple of years ago, and now he's neck deep in debt. To dig himself out, he swiped the party's funds, tried to cover his tracks, and skipped town before anyone caught on. Null can't help but laugh. Lloyd was always fronting like he was some honorable, chivalrous dude. But business is business, and Null needs answers. He asks Walter when and where he got his hands on this letter. Walter says he caught wind of a sweet job last night, so he swung by Lloyd's room first thing in the morning to give him the heads up. But by the time he got there, Lloyd had already cleared out. That's when the innkeeper passed him the letter. According to the innkeeper, Lloyd and Tanya took off around 8 p.m. the night before, right before the city gates shut. Normally, neither Null nor Walter would have known any of this until the afternoon. Lloyd was clearly trying to buy time for his getaway. It's 9:30 am now, so even though they found out quicker than expected, it's already been half a day. By now, Lloyd and Tanya must have put some serious distance between them and the city. But the gate records should have a clue about which way they went. They most likely left on foot, so Null and Walter figure they can still catch up if they grab a horse. Walter's ready to bolt, but Null pulls him back, reminding him this isn't as simple as just chasing them down and snatching the money back. Lloyd and Tanya straight up abandon their crew, and that's betrayal. No two ways about it. If they catch up and face off, it could get bloody. And even if they take them down, the money's long gone. But Null's not letting them off the hook without paying for what they did. He drags Walter to the local tavern, though Walter's clueless about why they're there. Null doesn't feel like breaking it down for him, figuring Walter's too thick to get the plan anyway, so he just tells him to follow his lead. Once inside, Null grabs everyone's attention fast. He tells the crowd that 2 of his crew ran off with the party's money and ditched the capital. He's putting up 2 million fills to anyone who brings them back alive. Walter's flipping out, asking why Null aired their dirty laundry to the whole tavern. But Null's got his reasons. He's looking for a specific person and doesn't want to waste time hunting them down. The first crew to jump on the job is the Lightning Bite crew, so Null hands their leader everything he knows about Lloyd and Tanya's escape. Not long after, several more crews sign up to take the mission. But Null still hasn't tracked down the person he's been searching for. Out of nowhere, this sketchy old man comes up to him about the job offer. Something about this guy tells Null he's got the info he's been waiting on. They step outside to talk, and the man spills that he saw a couple leaving town yesterday who fit Null's description perfectly. He even knows where they're headed. The catch is, the man's crew isn't strong enough to take down Lloyd and Tanya on their own. Null offers to join forces, but says he's only paying the man 1 million for his trouble, not the full 2 million. The old man tries to haggle, but Null knows the guy's too broke to say no to that million. Eventually, the man gives in and agrees to the deal. Null tells him to gather his crew and meet him at the south gate. Then, he tells Walter to wait for him there too, because he's got some business to take care of first. A little later, Null wraps up what he needs to do and heads to the gate, where everyone's waiting. Walter pulls him aside. There's something he's gotta know. Walter asks if Null's really okay with fighting Lloyd and Tanya, but Null doesn't bat an eye. He's ready to take them out without a second thought. Walter's shocked that Null feels nothing after all the time they spent working together. But Null already had backup plans to take them down from the day they met, in case they ever crossed him. He even has one for Walter if it comes to that, which means Null never trusted them from the start. He warns Walter he might want to start being a little less trusting himself. Later that day, in some far-off village, Lloyd and Tanya are on the move. Lloyd tells her they should be in the clear for now, and they can finally relax tonight. He's convinced Null wouldn't bother coming after them, especially since the money's already gone. But Lloyd seriously underestimated how far Null's pettiness goes, because Null and a full squad show up right behind them. Lloyd reaches for his sword, ready to fight, but Null uses his ability to stop him in his tracks. Both he and Tanya freeze in place, totally stunned. With nowhere left to run, Walter starts yelling at Lloyd for betraying the crew. Null says he's got a question for Lloyd. He knows the party's savings are long gone, but the cash they got from the vampire hunt should still be around. Lloyd denies it, swearing he used up that money too. So Null asks Lloyd if he blew the money on another busted NFT scheme, but Lloyd fesses up that he used it to pay off his debts. The way Lloyd responds tells Null everything he needs to know. Lloyd's just an old gambler at heart. Null figures Lloyd must have gotten in deep with some nasty debt collectors, but he wants to hear Lloyd admit it. But before Lloyd say a word, Walter cuts him off, screaming about how he gambled away all the money they busted their backs to save. Lloyd drops the act, saying he's the real victim here. He didn't want to mess with the party's cash, but gambling was too fun to resist. Besides, they dumped the responsibility of leading the crew on him, so it's their fault too. Null's heard enough BS at this point. He boots Lloyd in the face and starts stomping on him, furious that he had the nerve to throw out such weak excuses. Lloyd was the one who begged to be leader, all so he could feed his gambling habit. Null keeps stomping, and soon Lloyd's bloody and begging for mercy. But Null doesn't know the meaning of mercy. He's ready to beat Lloyd into the ground 1,000 times if that's what it takes. Tanya steps in, pleading with Null to let Lloyd go. Null agrees, but only if she's down to take the beating in his place. Null's all about equality, so if she's volunteering, he's more than willing to stomp on her instead. Using his power, he forces her to confess, and sure enough, she spills the truth. She admits she gambled away the party's money right alongside Lloyd, and turns out, she's even more of a gambling junkie than he is. The ability Null used makes anyone spill the absolute truth for a short time, and once Tanya snaps out of it, she's livid. She screams at Null for using mind control on her, reminding him it's illegal under Imperial law. Null doesn't deny it. She's right. Using mind control for personal reasons is against the rules. But right now, she's the criminal, and what Null did counts as an interrogation, making it perfectly legal. Now that Null's finished dealing with the traitors, the old man steps up, asking for his payment. Null agrees to pay him, but says he needs a minute to handle something first. The old man doesn't take too kindly to being told to wait. He grabs Null, accusing him of trying to rip them off. But Null yanks him down to the ground and calmly tells him he'll get paid, so he needs to shut up and be patient. The man's fuming and pulls out a knife, ready to make a move, but that's the worst decision he could have made. Before he can even swing, Null lands a clean punch to his chest, knocking him out cold. See, Null learned that move from his grandpa first-hand experience too. It's a precise hit right above the heart, strong enough to temporarily paralyze the heart muscles, even dropping seasoned warriors to the floor. Grandpa taught him this because Null's a talker and can't boost his own strength, so he needed something to defend himself. The man's crew drags his unconscious body off the road, and soon after, a fancy carriage rolls up. Out steps Null's old friend, Finocchio Barzini, a notorious slave trader. He's the head of the Barzini family, eccentric as they come, and a bit too zesty. But Null knows he's the only one who can help right now. Null's plan is crystal clear. He's selling Lloyd and Tanya to Finocchio to recoup the money they stole. Tanya's scared out of her mind, but Null reminds her she's got worse options. He could always turn her in to the police, and in this place, that means being shipped off to the mines. And everybody knows the mines are no joke. Her best shot at survival is as a slave, hoping they get bought by a decent master. With that out in the open, Null asks Finocchio to appraise Lloyd and Tanya. After checking them out, Finocchio offers $6 million for the pair. But Null's not having it. He says that's too low. Finocchio apologizes, explaining that times are tough. The Holy Cross Church is about to issue a decree forcing everyone to take a vow of poverty. If Finocchio pays top dollar for these two, it'll draw unwanted attention, and he's not trying to get caught up in that. Null hadn't realized the church had that much pull, even over a powerful family like the Barzinis. But it doesn't change his stance. He tells Finocchio he'll take 11 million, no less. It takes Finocchio a second to catch on, but once he does, he starts hollering about Null trying to squeeze an extra 5 million out of him. With all the back and forth yelling, Null keeps bumping up the price, until he's asking for 15 million while Finocchio only started at 6. Finocchio's getting heated, but Null throws out an offer. If Finocchio buys Lloyd and Tanya for 15 million, Null will tell everyone that he only paid 13 million. The church's decree means Finocchio can't buy overpriced stuff, but if he plays it right and claims Lloyd and Tanya are worth every penny, folks will be lining up to buy them just because they're expensive. If Finocchio works his angles, he could flip them for 90 million easy. Finocchio's impressed by Null's sharp thinking and even offers him a spot in the Barzini family. But Null shuts it down. He's not interested. Finocchio gets it and agrees to the deal. But first, he walks over to that scruffy guy and his crew, warning them to keep their mouths shut unless they want to die a slow, painful death. With that handled, Finocchio hands Null a down payment and starts leading Lloyd and Tanya away. Tanya freaks out, begging Null not to do this, but Null just gives her a wicked look, so she turns to Walter, pleading with him to step in. She knows Walter has feelings for her, so she expects him to save her. But Walter doesn't move. Tanya, now desperate, starts hurling insults at Walter, calling him every name in the book. The look on Walter's face is priceless. He never thought she'd talk to him like that. Once the deal's sealed, Null gives the scruffy guy his million and turns to leave with Walter. After all this, Walter is left questioning his whole life. He's seriously thinking about quitting the Seeker life altogether. Null tries to reassure him, telling him it wasn't his fault. In this line of work, you meet all kinds of people, and some are bound to stab you in the back. Null admits Walter's not the sharpest and maybe a bit soft mentally, but he's a natural warrior. He wants Walter to stay and help rebuild their party. But Walter's had enough. After what went down, he can't live the Seeker life anymore. Null understands and respects his decision. As Walter walks out of the city, Null wishes him luck and says goodbye. But for Null, his dream isn't dead. Even though his party's fallen apart, he refuses to let it break him. He's determined to rebuild the Blue Beyond and make its stronger party. So this is how it plays out. Null's out there scouting for new members, but Wolf, the leader of Lightning Bite, steps up and tells him nobody's gonna join. Wolf figures all the pros already have their squads locked down. He offers Null a spot with his crew, Lightning Bite, which is stacked with talent. So Null agrees to join them under the condition, if I call the shots. Wolf is caught off guard by that, but the rest of the crew, they don't care, because they know Null's sharper than Wolf. Wolf, though, reminds everyone he's the one who built the crew in the first place. Just then, out of nowhere, a mysterious girl shows up, says her name's Alma, and she wants in with Null's team. Null's thinking she's a kid, but she drops the bomb that she's 21. Lysha the archer does the math and realizes Alma's 5 years older than Null. Null asks her what she does and her rank, and Alma says she's a C-rank scout. Null figures she'll be useful, since scouts are clutch for spotting danger when diving into an abyss. She hits him with a piece of info. She knows Null's the grandson of Overdeath, and her granddad fought him. The fight was so serious that her granddad lost an arm. Null's thinking she's here for revenge, but Alma clears it up. She's not out for blood. She's just curious about what kind of seeker Null is. He lets her know Overdeath's already dead, and Alma tells him her granddad died last month. His name Alker. That name hits hard. Everyone recognizes him as the legendary assassin who started a secret society. But Logan, another dude in the mix, calls BS on her story. He throws out that unwritten rule seekers follow. Gotta hit the right bar that matches your rank. Logan thinks she's a rookie and threatens to beat her down. She flips it back on Null, asking how seeker ranks work, and he breaks it down for her. It's based on job rank and skills. Alma figures she can shut Logan up by taking him down and calls him a monkey to his face. Logan loses it and swings at her, but Alma drops him fast, knocks him out cold, no sweat. Null and the whole crew are impressed, so Null hires her on the spot. But all Alma's thinking about is food. She says she's starving. Next, she's chowing down on a fried bun, saying it's the best thing she's had in a minute, talking about how there's no good food up in the mountains. That's when Null starts piecing things together. She really is Alker's granddaughter. He admits he didn't buy it at first, but Alma tells him she could tell right off he's Overdeath's grandson, because he's got that look like he's ready to do whatever it takes to win. We find out that Alker warned her never to go up against Overdeath, because there's no way to beat him in a fair fight. She also says Null's eyes bring back Alker's words in her mind. She reveals she's been training to be an assassin and says she's already met all the requirements. So, Null asks her why she hasn't joined the Society of Assassins yet. In a flashback, Alma's taking the assassin exam, but she's irritated because her examiner looks weak. He goes after her, but she knocks him down, threatening to kill him because Alker told her only the strong should survive. He starts begging for his life, saying that rule's outdated, but she doesn't care and tries to finish him off. Then a man named Simon steps in, telling her he's the new head of the society, and that what she's doing goes against their rules. Back in the present, Alma explains they didn't let her in. They recognized her skills, but said she wasn't a good fit since they're changing things up. They don't need assassins who stick to the old ways. She mentions that they're planning to work for the crown now, focusing more on espionage than contract killings. That's when Null realizes she's just handed him sensitive info, and he worries they might kill him to keep him quiet. But she reassures him, saying not to stress if it comes to that. She's got his back. A bit later, they're walking through the woods, and Null starts telling Alma about his class. He explains he's got buffs that can change the outcome of a fight, but if he uses them at the wrong time, his whole team could get wiped out. He needs to read the battlefield before using his skills. He says he gives commands to control the flow of battle, but admits he can't fight himself since he can't buff his own stats. He asks Alma to catch a monster, a creature mutated by the abyss, and mentions there are killer rabbits in the area. He asks her to catch one for an experiment, saying he'll use his talk skill to support her, but he thinks it'll be tough for her because her body still needs to get used to his skills. Null tells her his old team was talented, but even they needed half a month to adapt. He figures she'll need to train, but Alma's confident, saying she can handle it. She senses 13 rabbits nearby, and Null tells her to catch them while he uses his talk skill to back her up, saying her stats will double as long as she follows his orders. He knows about her skill, Excel, which doubles her speed, and tells her to use it as much as she needs, thinking she'll be able to move even faster than usual. Null lays it down straight. She's gotta catch a killer rabbit in under 10 seconds to pass. He gives the order to start, and Alma hits them with a quintuple Excel, moving at a wild speed. She's tearing through the area, grabbing those killer rabbits with ease, all the while noticing how much lighter she feels with the talker buffs kicking in. She comes back in 8 seconds flat, and Null's shocked. She caught all 13 rabbits like it was nothing. That's when he realizes she don't need no extra training. Her skills are off the charts. Then, he starts talking about their first gig, and she's thinking it's time to dive into an abyss. But Null pulls out a letter instead. Turns out, their job's hunting down some thieves in a nearby village. So, they set off and Alma's feeling hyped, saying she's having fun since it's her first time riding in a carriage. Null's not as enthusiastic though. He tells her the ride's gonna be boring since they'll be stuck sitting for hours. As they're riding, Null explains that Seekers take on all kinds of work, not just hunting monsters. The Lord's supposed to handle the thieves, but he's moving too slow to protect his people, so the villagers hit up the Seekers for help. Null mentions that the poor folk won't be able to pay much, but he took the job anyway cause he wants to see what Alma's made of. When they roll into the town of Eudora, Alma tells Null they should rest, because my bag is feeling sore from this carriage ride. So she tells Null they need to find a place to crash. They look for an inn, but everything's packed, and they end up stuck sharing a small room. Null offers her the bed, saying he'll take the floor. Alma clocks that he's feeling awkward about it, so she tells him to sleep next to her, but Null ain't having it and heads to take a bath. When he comes out, Alma notices his physique dude's been training hard, but she's thinking it's kind of a waste. No matter how hard he works, he's never gonna be as good as a frontline fighter. Talent will always beat out hard work. She even tells him that if he'd been a warrior, he could have been the ultimate seeker. Null's not trying to hear it. He flicks her and tells her that kind of talk wasn't necessary, then sends her off to take her own bath. As he's lying down, getting ready to sleep, her words stick with him. He knows Alma's got a point, but he remembers what his granddad used to say. Overdeath believed in him, telling him he could still become the strongest, even as a talker. He is not about to let his granddad down. When Null and his buddy roll up, they see the village boss beyond waiting for them. He's caught off guard, surprised that it's only the two of them. Null breaks the news, saying the rest of the crew bailed. It's just them now. He reassures the chief, telling him not to stress, they'll handle business. The chief gives a shaky smile, not too sure about it. Once inside, they sit down, and the chief's wife brings them some tea. Null catches the chief's daughter peeking at him from the next room. When he notices her, she ducks away all shy. The chief chuckles, saying she's at that awkward age and has been looking forward to their visit. Null figures she's probably bummed their good-looking leader didn't show up, but it turns out she's got her eye on Null instead. Switching the topic, Null asks if the band of thieves is about 20 deep, and the chief says yes, that's about right. The chief also adds that the thieves hit up a nearby town, leaving a trail of bodies. Not only did they rob the place, but they snatched up the women too. Null asks if the chief knows where these bandits are hiding out. The chief points east, mentioning a rocky clearing in the forest. With that info, Null decides it's time to talk money. He brings up payment, asking for 200,000 upfront and 300,000 when the job's done. The chief agrees without a fuss and hands over the advance right away. Null locks in the payment, a little surprised the chief didn't even try to haggle. But it dawns on him that the village probably scraped together all they had. They're hurting. Null then heads out, saying he'll be back when the job's wrapped. The scene shifts to Null and Alma walking in the forest. Alma says the chief couldn't keep his eyes off her chest and calls him a nasty creep for doing that in front of his wife and daughter. As they're leaving, the chief's daughter runs up, asking if they're really gonna take out the thieves. Null tells her not to sweat it, they'll knock this out quick. She wishes him luck and says she'll be cheering for him. Then she pulls out a bamboo dragonfly, asking if he remembers it. Null flashes back, recalling he was the one who showed her how to make those. She proudly tells him that hers fly higher than the other kids, but this one, it's the same one he gave her. She says she's been holding on to it since then, and it's her most valuable thing. Null thinks that's sweet, and she tells him to come back soon because her and her mom are gonna whip up something tasty for them. Then, she heads off. Alma, teasing Null, says he's got the little girl wrapped around his finger. Null snaps back, telling her to shut it, calling her a big-boobed bimbo, which Alma doesn't appreciate one bit. Next, it cuts to them sneaking up on the thieves' hideout at night. Turns out, the gang is way bigger than 20. Null's thinking there's no way this many guys are just some regular small-time crooks. He spots the boss and realizes it's Gordo, the razor blade. Alma's clueless, so Null fills her in Gordo's got a 2 million bounty on his head, and Null's shocked he's still kicking. Null tells Alma that Gordo's a B-rank bandit, part of the scout class, and asks if she can take him down. Alma says she can, but only if she fights him one-on-one. Null gets it and tells her to leave the rest of the crew to him. She's surprised, reminding him that if he gets too close, the enemy will spot him. Alma explains she can stay hidden, but Null can't. He tells her not to worry, he's got a plan. After he runs her through it, Alma sneaks into the camp using her stealth ability. Null uses his link skill to stay in touch with her, and once she's in position, he lets out a howl, stunning all the bandits except for the leader. Null orders Alma to finish Gordo, and she uses her quintuple excel to take him out in one strike. The howl wears off, but the bandits are left in chaos. Null tells Alma to keep the rest busy until he can get there. She's slicing through them one by one, and Null notices that she's starting to get a little too into it. He can already tell she's going to be a handful later on. When he shows up, he throws a flash grenade after warning Alma and uses flame bullets to wipe out the rest while they're stunned. Next, they're back at the village chief's house. The chief asks about the thieves, and Null casually shows him the boss's head in a bag, asking for the rest of the money. The chief invites them to stay for dinner before they leave, and they all sit down to eat. During dinner, the chief lets slip that his daughter's been tested and is a skilled swordsman herself. The girl's talking about wanting to be a seeker, just like Null, and she's wondering if she's got what it takes to pull it off. Anyone can do it, but she's gonna have to register with the government first. Then, she'll need to sign up for a training school with one of the tribes. School's free, but she'll have to cover her own living costs, so she'd better start saving now. He also suggests she can get some hands-on experience by working as a supporter, explaining that supporters are basically the seeker's gophers. It's not super common, but it's a way to see how the pros handle things up close. The girl gets hyped and asks if she can join Blue Beyond when she becomes a strong seeker. Null promises that if she turns into a real deal seeker, and if he's still someone she looks up to by then, she's got a spot. Hearing that, she lights up and the village chief and his wife bring out some wine. The chief tells them to enjoy it, saying the bottle cost him 100,000 and he's been saving it for something special. Null takes a sniff and can tell it's high quality stuff, but he plays it cool, saying he's just a guest and can't be the one to take the first sip. He offers the chief the honor, but the chief tries to back out, saying he doesn't drink. Null's eyebrows raise. Why would a dude spend 100,000 on wine when he doesn't even drink? Null then drops a bombshell, telling the chief to go ahead and take a sip of this poisoned wine. The chief flinches, quickly denying that he poisoned the wine, claiming he has no reason to do that. Null challenges him, saying if they were dead, the chief could snatch their money and gear without ever having to pay up. The chief, nervous now, asks Null what makes him think that, and Null lays it out. First one, he says, a man who lies about how many bandits there are to try and save on the reward wouldn't break out wine that costs 100,000. Second, Null noticed right away that the smell of the wine isn't what it should be, it's cheap stuff that's been sitting open for too long and is starting to go bad. And third, Null points out that he's felt the chief's bloodlust ever since he pulled out that bottle. Alma jumps in, adding that they're not falling for his bad acting, and tells the chief that scouts like her have a tolerance to poison, so even if she drank it, it wouldn't have done a thing. The chief, still holding on to his lie, says they have no proof. Null doesn't miss a beat, telling him to prove it by drinking the wine himself. The chief snaps and throws the wine aside, telling Null to shut up and saying he doesn't have to listen to him. But Null's not letting it slide. He hits the chief with his confess skill, and the truth comes pouring out. The chief did poison the wine. His daughter, standing there, is crushed hearing this. Without missing a beat, Null gouges out one of the chief's eyes right in front of his daughter, cold as ice, telling him he's not done. He warns the chief he's coming for the other eye next, and after that, the rest of his body. The chief, terrified, begs for forgiveness, promising to pay the 300,000 he owes, but Null's not satisfied. He tells him that's not nearly enough, not after trying to take him out. Null demands every last coin in the house. The chief, desperate, pleads that he can't because he's drowning in debt. Null doesn't care and moves to finish him, but just as he's about to, The chief's daughter rushes inside. The chief blurts out that he's borrowed from the Gambino family, the mafia, and if he misses his payment, they'll kill him. Null shrugs it off like it's not his problem and goes to strike, but the daughter comes back with all the coins they have in the house, totaling 820,000. She begs Null to spare her father. The chief yells at her not to give Null the money, warning her that the Gambinos will kill them both, but she ignores him, handing the coins over to Null, who takes them and walks out. As he leaves, the daughter yells that she hates seekers. Out in the forest, Alma checks on Null, asking if he's alright. He brushes it off, saying he's fine. Alma presses, saying he must feel something after crushing the heart of a girl who looked up to him like that. Null says he's not worried about letting people down. Alma, teasing again, says he can always lean on his big sister when things get tough, but Null's not feeling that idea at all. Then, they spot a flying airship in the distance. Null realizes it belongs to the Goat Dinner clan, part of the 3-star regalia. Alma's confused, asking what regalia means. Null explains it's a title given to clans recognized by the Empire. There are 7 regalia clans in total, but they aren't on the same level. The hierarchy depends on their strength and achievements. At the bottom are 4 3-star regalia, then 2 2-star regalia, and at the top, a single 1-star regalia. One perk of being a regalia is having the right to own an airship, and Alma figures the ship must be loaded with strong people. Null agrees, saying they aren't just strong, they're elite in wealth, experience, and bravery. Null then drops his plan, telling Alma he's aiming to be part of the regalia within a year. Hearing that takes Alma back to when she took the test to join the Society of Assassins. After it was over, she asked the leader if she passed, and he told her she did in terms of combat skills. But Alma was confused what else was there. That's when the leader hit her with a question. Was she the one who killed Alker, the previous head of the society? Alma didn't even flinch. She admitted that she did, saying that even the so-called god of assassins was a sitting duck when he got too old. When the leader asked her why she did it, she wondered what the point was in even asking. He shrugged, saying it was just for curiosity. Then, he dropped another bombshell. He knew Alma wasn't Alker's granddaughter like she claimed she was his daughter. Alma confirmed it, saying she was just one of many kids born from women Alker had kidnapped from some random village. She remembered being forced to fight kids her own age growing up, and explained that Alker wasn't looking for a family, he wanted an equal. Alker was obsessed with being reborn as something invincible, unable to accept that he lost his fight against death. Her siblings all fell victim to his twisted dream, but Alma was the only one who survived, becoming his greatest success. But Simon, the leader, told her that despite her strength, she wasn't fit to be part of the society. When Alma demanded to know why, Simon explained that the society was changing. They were about to become a government agency, and while they would still kill, it wouldn't be their main purpose anymore. It was about securing their future, not making murder their end goal like in the old days. Alma was furious. She had spent 21 years of her life training to be a killer, and now Simon was telling her she wasn't needed anymore. She'd never had fun, never fallen in love, all because of that training, and now it seemed like it was all for nothing. She demanded to know what her last 21 years even meant, and if they were going to throw her away like that, they better give her life back. Simon told her she'd have to figure it out on her own, but he did mention something that might interest her. Overdeth's grandson was out there, working as a seeker with one of the tribes. Alma asked if he was strong, and Simon confirmed it, but with a twist his class was Talker, the weakest class of all. Still, he told her to go check him out if she wanted. Back in the present, Alma hugs Null tight and tells him she'll always fight by his side, no matter what. The scene jumps to this guy knocking out a security guard. He uses his powers to shape-shift into the guard, then heads over to the guard's post. He leans over to the other guard on duty, asking if the death row inmate's in that cell. The guard says he's in there, but mentions the guy's quiet, real calm, doesn't even let folks know he's around. Turns out, this prisoner's the same killer who had folks shaking in their boots. His name is Hugo Capelia, the puppeteer. Meanwhile, it cuts to Null out early in the morning, running with some weight. He explains how it's his daily drill, doing 2 laps around the castle walls, no matter how tired he is. As he runs, he remembers the grueling training from his granddad, the day he told Null he was going to be a seeker. That day, the kind, soft-spoken granddad he'd known was gone. It was hell from then on, every single day. Null learned that, since seekers can't buff themselves up with power, his body was his only weapon, so he trained with everything he had. After pushing himself to the limit, Null's taking a shower, thinking about what Alma once told him about his well-maintained physique. She'd mentioned it wouldn't do him any good since he's a talker, not someone who'd ever be in the front line. Once he's out of the shower, Alma drops by his room. She spots his setup and says she figured he'd have a nice space. Null asks about her room, wondering if she's settled in. She replies it's not much, but it'll do. He reminds her this isn't the time they agreed on, she's early. She teases him, asking if he's not happy to see his big sister early, and playfully wonders if she can touch him. Without waiting for him to answer, she starts touching him, even climbs on top of him on the bed. Null tries to fend her off, but she keeps going, even trying to kiss him, saying he's cute. Just in time, he headbutts her, stopping her right there. Later, they're walking through town, and Alma teases Null about headbutting a girl. He straight up says he had every right after all. She tried to come at him like that. Alma jokes that it's his fault for being too cute. As they're strolling along, she spots a couple holding hands and grabs Null's hand, saying they're on a date and asking where he's planning to take her today. First stop, they hit the Appraisers Guild. Null breaks it down. This is where folks get their class evaluated and can even rank up. He explains that Appraiser is a special class. Only gnomes have it, and they can't rank up. According to him, gnomes are quirky little folks, almost obsessed with studying classes like it's their whole purpose. They spot a gnome helping a seeker rank up, and Null asks Alma if she's going to go for hers since she's got the brand that shows she's ready. Turns out, when someone's set to rank up, a mark shows up on their body, usually on the back of the hand or chest. Alma teases Null, saying it'd be cute if he had his mark on his behind, and he snaps back, telling her to knock it off. Then he asks if she's planning to go the assassin route. She says she hasn't figured it out yet and asks his advice. He's got nothing concrete to say but mentions that an assassin could be handy for them, though they'd have to think about skills overlapping with any new folks they bring in. Alma's surprised to hear him talk about more recruits, and he confirms that he's definitely bringing at least one more person on board. They're not diving into the abyss alone. He tells Alma to hold off on ranking up for now and that today they'll just check out her options. After the guild, Alma's munching on some buns and asks where they're headed next. Null says they should drop by the smithy he uses since as seekers, they have to keep their weapons in shape. At the smithy, the dwarf working there pervs out as soon as he notices the giant watermelon of Alma. Their last stop is a skill bookstore, and Null explains that it's a place specializing in skill guides. He asks the shop owner for some good skills for a C-rank scout, and she gets him what he's looking for. As he's about to leave, Alma stops him, asking if he's not going to browse. He lets her know skill guides are sorted by class, so he's got to hit up another shop to find his. Null tells her they should link up later, and before heading out, he mentions her budget is $1 million. He tells her to go easy on the cash, and she nods. But later, when they meet back up, turns out she's picked up this huge teddy bear. Null's stunned, like he can't believe she went and spent money after he told her not to waste it. She tells him she didn't waste a thing, and shows him this armor-piercing skill she bought. It's a projectile move that chops a target's defense in half, and it ran her 800 grand. Then she laughs, saying she used the last 200k to buy herself this teddy. Says it's her new body pillow, a stand-in for Null. She asks him if he picked up anything himself, and he says what he wanted was way out of his range. Turns out he wanted this exorcism skill that can take out undead in a snap, but it costs 30 million. Just then, he notices someone nearby and tells Alma he's got something to handle and will be right back. Alma doesn't seem too happy about that. The next thing, Null's in a rough part of town, a slum area, meeting up with a guy named Loki. Null asks why Loki called him to a place this messy, saying they could have talked anywhere. Loki shrugs and says he's on thin ice these days and doesn't want to be seen. He hands Null a letter, saying it's got the info on the prisoner Null was looking into. As Null reads it, Loki asks if he's sure about bringing a killer, someone who had a whole town shaking in their boots, into his crew. But Null's convinced Hugo got framed, which is why he's set on finding out the truth and proving the guy's innocent. Loki thinks Null's off his rocker first. He's selling off his crew as slaves, and now he's trying to break a death row inmate free to add him to the team. Loki even jokes that Null might be missing a few screws, but Null just takes it as a compliment. He thanks Loki for the help, adding he wouldn't expect anything less from Faceless, the best informant in the capital. Loki's not moved by the flattery, telling Null it won't help him, and shifts into different forms right there, explaining that he's an imitator, a class that can copy other people's looks. Loki mentions he can break into any facility he wants, and Null points out that imitator is a class even appraisers can't fully wrap their heads around. He's not even sure if the face he's seeing right now is Loki's real one. Null hands over the pay for the info. Before Loki leaves, he throws some bonus intel as a regular customer. Says there's this bad drug making rounds, giving people an unbeatable high, but it's got a nasty side effect. It makes folks super aggressive. That's got stabbings up all over the place. Null figures some fool must be peddling that junk, thinking the Barzini won't come down on them, but Loki reveals the supplier is actually a subfamily of the Barzini. That makes Null think about how this turf belongs to the Gambino family, under Albert Gambino's control right now. Loki adds that Albert's a real maniac, and meanwhile, we see Alma stewing, mad that Null still hasn't come back. She's stress-eating, grumbling about how Null just doesn't understand women. Lysha spots Alma there, and then we cut back to Null, walking through the slum. He recalls how the Gambino family's old boss is dead now, with his son running things. Looking around their turf, he thinks it's a shame, since the old boss was a stand-up guy, even Barzini had respect for him. He knows the old man would never have allowed a drug that dangerous to spread. As he's walking, Null spots this beggar with unique features, figuring the guy's an immigrant. He feels sorry for him, thinking the poor guy's destined to die on the street, far from his homeland. Feeling bad, he drops a coin as he walks by, but the beggar picks it up, tries to give it back, thinking Null dropped it by accident. He even tells Null that this isn't a safe spot for a girl like him, which ticks Null off. Null turns around and lets him know he's a man, not some girl. The beggar apologizes, and Null says he doesn't want the coin back since it's been touched by his dirty hands. Null tries to walk off, but the beggar chases after him. Null kicks him down, warning him to keep his hands off. He tells the guy to know his place. Seeing Null talk down to him, the beggar is reminded of someone else who treated him the same way, and it stirs up his anger. He says he's not into fighting, but he knows he has to stand up for himself, so he takes a fighting stance. When Null sees how he's standing, he realizes this guy isn't just some beginner. The guy tells Null he should apologize, but when Null refuses, he comes at him. Null dodges the hit, feeling a surge of anger from the attack. Then they start exchanging blows, with Null clearly overpowering him. The guy notices some serious moves, and says, "Are you a ninja or something?" Null shakes his head and explains that ninjas are a scout class from an island nation to the east, and he figures this guy must be from that place. Null then reveals he's a talker, and the guy looks surprised to hear that. But since Null is tough, he still decides to unleash his aura and says he's going to use his skills now. Null thinks he might have hit the jackpot with him, so he takes a serious stance to test his abilities. Just as they're about to clash, a goofy-looking dude who's shorter than a dwarf shows up and asks Koga what he's doing when he told him to stay put. Meanwhile, Lysha realizes that Alma still hasn't decided on her class. Alma tells her about her 4 options: assassin, torturer, chaser, and bandit. She mentions she has a strong affinity for the assassin and chaser classes, and Lysha thinks it must be tough for her to decide if she wants to be on the front lines. Alma points out that her choice depends on her teammates too, and that's why they're putting it off for now. Lysha suggests that maybe Null is out looking for new team members right now. Back in the slums, we see the short guy scolding Koga for his choices. He uses a ring on his hand to punish Koga. That's when Null realizes Koga has made an oath of submission to this guy, and with that ring, the wearer can make someone obey him. Null thinks about how using that item is illegal, but it's allowed if the person it's used on is a slave. Then the short guy asks Null who he is, but he mistakenly thinks Null is a girl, even though he's shorter than a baby pickle. This guy tries to get all creepy with Null, but Null just kicks him away. Then he pulls out his gun and asks where the guy's from. The guy says he's from Soldaland, but won't spill the beans on why he's here. Null isn't having any of that and starts getting a bit threatening. The guy finally cracks and says he couldn't stay back home anymore because he was running an underground fighting ring for the Dalenbert family and got caught stealing from the Prophet. Null puts 2 and 2 together and figures this guy came here looking for refuge, since the Gambino family is way bigger than the Dalenbert family, so they can't hunt him down here. Then Null asks if Koga is his gladiator, and he finds out that he is. Null realizes this dude plans to make Koga fight in the underground ring to snag some prize money. Null thinks there shouldn't be any issues if he takes this guy out since he's running from the Dalenbert family, and they won't care if he ends up dead. Plus, he figures Koga will be his once this guy is out of the picture, so he fires his gun, but we don't see where the bullet goes. Meanwhile, Lysha tells Alma that Null's recruitment poster is still up in the town square, and someone might have hit him up about it. She thinks it's kind of lame to bail in the middle of a date, but she gets that it's just how Null rolls. Lysha then mentions that Null might be trying to charm a new potential member right now, and Alma isn't bothered by that, but she thinks she's good enough to be the only one Null will ever need, and if anyone else shows up, she'll take them out. Then, Null gives him a warning shot, letting him off this time, but he's got 10 seconds to get out of here, or Null's aim won't be off on the next round. The guy jumps up, scared out of his mind, and kicks Koga to get him moving too. Now, Null would have respected Koga's strength, but the fact Koga hasn't taken out that little old man to break free shows he doesn't have the guts Null's looking for in a teammate. A little later, Null heads back to the cafe, and Lycia's there to greet him. He looks at her, figuring he didn't invite her here, so he says he's not covering her bill. Alma, ticked off, snaps back, saying Lycia's just here to keep her company since Null left her hanging for ages. Null gives in and agrees to cover them both this time. He sits down, and Lycia asks if he's had any luck finding solid teammates. She figures he's been out recruiting since he took forever to show up, but even though he was hoping to bring someone on board, he didn't find anyone who fit his standards. Right now, he's got something else to check out, so he asks if Lycia knows anything about this drug that's been going around. She's heard rumors but doesn't know much. Null fills her in that it's got some intense rage side effects and is spreading unchecked, so he warns her to stay alert if she crosses paths with it. Lycia thanks him, surprised he's even giving her a heads up since he's not usually the type to show concern. Null brushes it off, saying he's just passing info along because he gets along with her crew, so she thanks him again and heads out, saying she needs to get back to her party. Before she goes, she invites Alma to tag along with her to this sweet shop she knows not as a teammate, but as a friend. Alma's all for it, but Null's got zero interest in becoming besties with Lycia, so he tells her to hurry up and get going. After she leaves, Null starts mulling over the mess with that wild drug. If even Lycia's hearing talk about it, it must have spread beyond the capital, and Null's betting it'll blow up into an even bigger issue than it already is. Meanwhile, that little dude Miguel just got snatched up by Albert Gambino. Normally, Albert wouldn't bother with Miguel, but the D'Alembert family's thirsty for revenge over Miguel's troublemaking, so they called on the Gambino family for backup. Miguel's in full panic mode, because not only did he get caught, but he got caught by Albert, a certified psychopath. Albert's the type to keep a glass case full of skulls from people he's crossed. Albert tells Miguel it'd be too boring to hand him over to the D'Alembert family. Trying to save himself, Miguel starts buttering Albert up, saying a guy as legendary as him shouldn't waste his time on something as dull as handing him over for a bounty. But his pants kissing blows up in his face, because Albert says he's got something real fun in mind. And to him, fun means skinning Miguel alive and turning him into a doll. Miguel freaks, asking if Albert's kidding, but Albert's stone cold serious about it and plans on doing the same to Miguel's slave Koga. Koga hears all this about getting skinned alive, but he couldn't care less. He gave up on himself a long time ago, so he's fine with his miserable life ending, even if it means being skinned. Right before Albert can break out the skinning tools, one of his debt collectors walks in, bringing along someone who's missed a payment. Turns out, it's the chief of a men's village. The chief goes on this big rant, explaining how he scraped together the money to pay Albert back. But this ruthless seeker named Null came out of nowhere and stole every last coin. He even says Null went as far as calling Albert Gambino Edward Scissorhands, which sets Albert off. Albert's livid about the disrespect and swears he'll make Null pay for it. But he decides to give the chief more time to pay him back since he was honest about what happened. Still, that doesn't mean he's getting off easy for missing the payment. Albert thinks for a second and says he'll be taking the chief's right arm as payment for being late. Hearing this, the chief is frozen in terror. Albert wastes no time and orders Koga to do the dismembering for him. Seeing that Koga's got skills with a long sword, he figures it'll be simple even if he's only got a stick to work with. Koga's frozen for a second, but Miguel starts shouting at him to follow Albert's orders, so Koga gets up, ready to go through with it. But right before he does, Albert tells him to hold up because he wants to set the mood first. Albert grabs a purple drug crystal and chomps down on it, getting himself high, because to him, violence hits different when he's out of his mind. Now that he's seeing colors and hearing sounds, he gives Koga the green light to chop off the chief's hand. The chief's in denial, saying no way Koga can cut off his hand with just a stick. But before he can even finish, Koga moves, and a second later, the chief's hand is lying on the ground. The chief's howling in pain, and Albert's absolutely thrilled by it. Miguel tries to work this to his advantage and offers to hand Koga over to Albert, hoping to get on his good side. And it seems to work because Albert accepts and takes Koga as his own. Now that Koga officially belongs to Albert, he's taken to another room to change out of his rags, and this is where we get a glimpse of his tragic backstory. Koga's dad was a wealthy businessman, and his mom was known as one of the most beautiful women around. They seemed to have it all, a happy life, blessed beyond measure. But then one day, out of nowhere, Koga's dad got jumped and knocked out cold, while his mom was dragged away and suffered horrors nobody should ever go through. By the time Koga's dad came to, he rushed to save her, but the damage was already done. 9 months later, Koga was born. and while his mom did her best to take care of him, Koga's dad couldn't look at him without bitterness. The resentment ran so deep that when Koga's mom saw the hatred in his eyes, she couldn't handle it anymore. That night, she drove a sword through her own neck. Years went by, and Koga's father became a full-blown drunk after losing his wife. But Koga still craved some kind of love from him, so he tried hard to be useful, thinking maybe he'd finally earn his dad's approval. But just laying eyes on Koga would often push his father into a rage, and the rest of the people around the estate only wished Koga had died with his mother, so they wouldn't have to see him around. Growing up in that house, Koga was constantly mocked, hated, and unwanted by everyone, and it tore down his self-worth. Then, one morning, he woke up on a boat with no explanation. It didn't take him long to realize his family had sold him off as a slave to get rid of him for good. That's where he first met Miguel, and the first thing Miguel did was throw him into an illegal fighting ring. Once Koga started dominating his opponents, Miguel was hyped, cheering him on like he was some kind of prized fighter. This was the first time Koga ever heard a good word about himself, and it hit him so hard he broke down in tears. But soon enough, he caught on Miguel didn't care about him at all. All Miguel saw was the cash flowing in from Koga's fights. Back to the present, Koga suited up and ready to head out on his first mission under Albert's command. Meanwhile, later that night, Null makes his way to an abandoned church to meet with Loki, who said he's got important info to share. Null has been decent to Loki, so Loki gives him a heads up the Gambino family's gunning for Null now. Loki fills him in, explaining that the chief of the men's village lied to Albert, saying Null disrespected him, and Albert bought the story. Now, Albert's sending an assassin to take Null out. Null thinks it's wild that Albert would order a hit based on such flimsy proof, but Albert's basically a madman. A normal person would never get his logic. Null wonders how someone like Albert even ended up as the head of the Gambino family, and the answer is nepotism. The old head of the Gambino family only had one son, so even though Albert was already a mess, he inherited the position without ever earning it. Right then, Null hears armor clanking against the ground. It means someone's coming, and it hits him that Loki must have sold him out to the Gambino family. Loki apologizes, saying he had no choice. If he didn't go along with this, the Gambino family would have taken him out. In the worst case, he figures he can just skip town, move to another country to get away from them. Null nods, saying that might be a decent escape plan. But there's one big flaw: nothing's stopping Null from shooting him right here and now. Null's disappointed though, since he liked having Loki around. But surprisingly, Loki doesn't even try to run, totally accepting the idea that Null might shoot him. Null's thrown off by that, so he asks why Loki's giving up his life so easily. Loki explains that he's realized he didn't just betray Null, he also betrayed his own pride as an informant, and he's got to pay for that. Null sees Loki's serious about taking the hit, so just this once, he decides to forgive him. Then he tells Loki he doesn't need to flee the country to get away from the Gambinos because Null plans to destroy that whole family himself. Loki's stunned for a second, then breaks out laughing because Null forgiving anyone is so out of character. Grateful for the second chance, Loki promises to make it up to Null someday. But right now, he's no help in a fight, so he takes off. After Loki's gone, Null turns to face his attacker, drinking a battle potion to get ready for what's coming. The potion ramps up his physical abilities like crazy, but it only lasts for 10 minutes, and it'll leave him worn out afterward. When his attacker steps out of the shadows, Null's shocked to see it's Koga, and Koga's just as surprised to realize the target he's been sent to kill is Null stolen. Null gives him a nod, saying it's impressive he's made it to assassin status with the Gambino family. It's a big step up from being a street brawler. So no interruptions. This time Null's all about picking up where they left off. He points his gun right at Koga, but Koga's not jumping to pull his swords out. Truth is, he doesn't really want to fight Null since he still owes him for that silver coin. But that doesn't mean he's about to ignore orders from his master, so he's got to step up. As a warrior with pride, Koga gives himself a proper intro, calling himself Koga, the slicing swordsman of the Wong clan, and throws down a challenge to Null. Null's thinking Koga's kinda dumb for revealing his gig like that, but he respects the pride, so he goes ahead and announces himself too. Then it's on. Null fires off a shot at Koga, but Koga's quick, dodging it and appearing right in front of Null. Just before Koga can slice him up, Null uses a wire to escape. Now that Koga's not all weak and hungry, he's got way more speed and precision than he did the last time they fought. But Null's got a game plan to take him down. He shoots a fire bullet at Koga. Koga dodges, but he still gets caught in the flames, so Null's thinking he's done some real damage. But Koga comes out untouched, slicing the air to create a barrier that protects him from the heat. Then he leaps up to go face to face with Null, forcing Null into close combat. Null tries to go for a low blow, aiming for Koga's nuts. Koga jumps back, calling it a cheap shot, saying that's a low move. But Null doesn't care, it's life or death out here, so he'll use whatever tricks it takes to get the win. Null then pulls a flashbang from his jacket, blinding Koga, and tries to use the opening to land a death blow. But before he can pull it off, Koga hits him with his special move, unleashing a flurry of slashes. He drives Null to the edge. Null tries to throw Koga off with a stun howl, but Koga cuts through it clean, sending Null crashing off the ledge heading straight for doom. Null hits the ground hard, gets knocked out cold, and by the time he comes to, he's staring up at Koga, who's standing over him with his sword aimed right at Null's head. Koga's got this smirk and says he's impressed, talking about how Null put up a hell of a fight and how tough he is. But Null ain't having it. He brushes off the praise and straight up asks Koga why he hasn't finished the job. Koga hesitates, looking unsure, because even though he was sent to take Null out, after a fight like that he just can't bring himself to do it. Seeing Koga stuck like this sets Null off. Null starts shouting, grabs the blade and snaps at Koga, telling him he's got no room for mercy, especially not for an enemy. Null makes it clear, if Koga doesn't kill him now, Albert sure as hell isn't going to let him walk away. But Koga still can't pull the trigger, and he's thrown off by how hard Null's pushing for him to finish it, knowing full well it means his own death. Koga figures maybe Null's worried about the people around him, trying to protect others. But then Null throws him off again, saying it's too late now, he's blown his chance. Alma just showed up, and she's not letting anyone lay a finger on Null's beautiful body. Turns out, before the fight kicked off, Null used his link skill to hit Alma with a message about the situation. Now he's glad she's here, cause the battle potion he chugged just wore off, and he's completely wiped out. Alma doesn't need all the details to know what's up. Koga attacked Null, and that's all she needs. She asks Null if she can take Koga out, and Null gives her the green light. Alma wastes no time and goes right at Koga, forcing him to block her strike with his swords. While he's holding her off, he pleads with her to back down, saying he really doesn't want to hurt a woman. Alma cracks up at that, calling him out since she's clearly got the upper hand. But Koga fires back, pointing out that she caught him off guard with a sneak attack and still couldn't land a kill shot. That sets Alma off. She sees it as a challenge and kicks on her acceleration skill, speeding up to blitz Koga and prove she's got him beat. But Koga's no slouch. He counters by turning on his sense enhancement skill, closing his eyes to focus, and reacting with pinpoint precision. While they're still going at it, Null can't help but feel the weight of being a talker. It's a sharp reminder he'll never be able to throw down the way Alma or Koga can. But instead of breaking his spirit, it just fires him up even more. He's dead set on beating the best and becoming the best. Right now, Alma and Koga are neck and neck, neither one giving an inch. Alma straight up admits Koga's tougher than she expected, but she's got one more deadly move ready to take him out for good. Koga, not one to back down, decides it's time to stop holding back. He's all about fairness and gets ready to drop his killer slash to finish Alma in one strike. But before either of them can make their next move, Null pops off a flare into the sky and tells Alma to fall back. Alma isn't feeling it at all, but Null's not asking, he's ordering. She's pissed, but she listens and steps down. Then Null turns to Koga and says he's gotta bounce too. That flare, it's about to have the military police swarming, and if the Empire catches on to Albert's plan, it's game over. Koga doesn't want to leave empty-handed, but Null's got a point. Just as Koga's about to dip, Null calls him back and says, I've got a message for Albert. The next day, Koga reports to Albert, admitting the hit on Null didn't go as planned. Surprisingly, Albert's not flipping out. He's calm, almost too calm. He tosses Koga a box with Miguel's head in it, acting like it's just business as usual, and says he'll let it slide this time because he's in a good mood. But he warns Koga, mess up again, and it's over. Koga promises he'll get it done next time. Albert likes the sound of that and waves him off. But before Koga leaves, he remembers Null's message. Quote, Null, tell Albert Gambino I'm gonna wreck his whole crew and send his ass straight to Godlike the Destroyer. Albert leans back, calm as ever, and asks if Koga's telling the truth or if this is another fake out, the way that village chief tried. But when he looks at Koga, there's no sign of deceit in his face. So Albert starts bugging out, and now he's dead set on seeing Null taken out for good. Koga and Albert's bodyguard Leos step out of the office to give him some space to cool off. As they walk, Leos tells Koga he might have gone a little too far with what he said. Koga owns up to it and apologizes. Leos then asks if Koga only said all that because Albert had Miguel killed, but Koga clears it up, he never liked Miguel anyway, so that's not it. The real reason Koga had to deliver Null's message is because he thinks Null is legit incredible. Even as a talker, Null pushed himself so hard he could go head to head with someone as strong as Koga. Koga knows the kind of pain Null had to go through to get there. Still, no matter how hard Null trains, it'll never be enough to beat someone in a combat class. But even with those odds, Null never lost that fire in his eyes, the one that says he's gonna be the strongest in the world no matter what. After hearing all this, Leo smirks and tells Koga he's basically obsessed with Null. No rainbow vibes though. Leo's means Koga respects Null as a rival and wants to push himself to new heights alongside him. Koga thinks it over and realizes Leo's nailed it. Then he wonders how Leo's knows so much about this kind of thing. Leo shrugs and says he's been through something similar, but it was way back in the day. The next day, Albert rolls up on Null at the Seeker's Tavern ready to settle the score. He's got a rank Leo's and a couple of B-rank Seekers waiting outside. Feeling real confident he's got this, Albert sits down at Null's table staring him down and grabs Null's bottle of wine. He starts chugging it to flex on him, but the wine tastes awful, and he's clearly hating it. Even though he's outnumbered, Null stays cool and cracks on Albert. He says it's rude to drink someone's wine without asking, though manners might be too much for Albert's tiny brain to handle. Albert gets in Null's face heated, but Null doesn't flinch. Instead, he tells Albert to step back, saying his funky breath worse than the penguin's is killing his appetite. Albert's ego takes a hit, and he snaps, threatening to cut Null's tongue out. But before he can make a move, one of the Seekers in the tavern steps up behind him and tells him to chill. The Seeker doesn't know what kind of beef Albert's got with Null, but he makes it clear nobody's throwing hands with a Seeker in this tavern no matter the reason. Albert, offended, throws his weight around, asking if the dude even knows who he's talking to. The Seeker doesn't flinch. He knows all about Albert's rep, but he and the other Seekers aren't about to let some outsider stroll in and start acting wild. Albert's not used to hearing no, so he flips, ordering Leo's and the bodyguards to take out Null and everyone else in the tavern. But the crew hesitates. Leo's points out that yes, they could easily wipe out the Seekers since most of them are just C rank, but doing that would stir up a world of problems. They'd have to answer to Don Luciano, and with the heat they're already catching over that drug mess, this could straight up bury the Gambino family. Still, Leo's makes it clear if Albert wants it done, he'll handle it. Albert starts second-guessing, unsure what move to make. That's when Null jumps in with more fire, calling Albert a spineless fool who can't even make a smart decision under pressure. Albert's face goes red with rage, but Null keeps going, telling him he'd better calm down. All that anger, it's just gonna speed up the poison coursing through his veins. Hearing that, Albert freezes, confused. Null drops the bomb he poisoned the wine Albert just chugged. Albert starts panicking, losing his cool, while Null explains that the second he saw Albert walk in, he laced the bottle. Albert can't believe Null would pull something so bold, especially when there was no guarantee he'd even drink it. But Null shrugs it off, it was a simple play. If Albert didn't drink, no harm done. But since he did, game over. Albert starts gagging and trying to puke the poison out, but Null shuts him down, saying it's already too late. That poison's deep in his bloodstream now, and there's no coming back from it. Albert, straight up losing it, full panic mode, and bolts out of the bar to find a doctor. As soon as he's gone, Leo's turns to Null, giving him props for being slick. He knows the wine wasn't really poison, Null just played Albert like a fiddle to scare him off. Leo's studies Null for a second, and instantly sees what Koga was talking about. The fire in Null's eyes is no joke. So Leo's throws him a bone, giving him two choices: take this cash and skip town to dodge Albert's wrath, or stay here and get smoked by Leo's right now. Null plays it smart and takes the money, heading out with Alma. As they leave the city gates, Alma's hyped everything went down exactly how Null planned it. Null's relieved it worked out, but he knows the real fight's just getting started. For now, they're going their separate ways for a week. Null's got something he needs to dig into, and Alma's hitting the woods to train hard enough to outclass Koga next time they throw down. They seal the deal with a fist bump, and Null promises that when he's back, he'll take down Albert Gambino for good. Fast forward a week, and Null's back in town. No sooner does he set foot inside than Albert rolls up with his whole army of bodyguards, thinking he's got Null cornered. Albert, grinning like a maniac, orders them to break all of Null's arms and legs. He wants the dude to suffer as long as possible. But here's the twist. Leo's and the crew don't even flinch, straight up ignoring the order. Albert's dumbfounded, clueless about what's going on. That's when Null steps forward and breaks it down for him, since a clown like Albert will never figure it out on his own. Albert's lost all his power over Leo's and the others. Earlier that day, Leo's and the bodyguards were hanging at a bar, drowning in guilt. Albert had ordered them to kill a little girl, and they couldn't shake the image of her clutching a toy like it was her whole world. They're sick over it and start questioning why they're even following Albert's twisted commands. They didn't sign up for this mess, they joined the game because they respected the old boss. But Albert respect isn't even in his vocabulary. They know they can't keep writing for him. Right in the middle of their conversation, Null walks in and spots the toy they're holding, the gift he gave the daughter from the men's village. Even though her dad was a total snake, Null still kinda had a soft spot for the little girl. So finding out she got taken out because of Albert hit him a bit. But anyway, he didn't come here to throw hands, he came to talk. Leos asks if Null knows what's gonna happen now that he's back in town, and Null's aware. But he makes it clear he didn't come to fight. He's just here to drop off something that might catch their attention. He pulls out a piece of paper, Albert's birth certificate. Null got it because he had Loki dig into Albert's background while he was out for a week. Turns out, Albert's got a whole different dad. The former Gambino boss had an affair with Albert's mom before he was born, and as a favor to her, he took Albert in and made him his heir, even though Albert's got no blood relation to the Gambino family at all. But that's not all Null wanted to look into. He also asked Loki to investigate the former boss's cause of death. What came back was wild. Albert didn't just have no ties to the Gambinos, but he also poisoned the old boss and made it look like the dude just got sick. Albert's shocked Null figured it out, but he tries to brush it off, saying they can't prove he actually did anything. Null grins, he's got all the proof he needs because he's got this skill called confess. It's a little trick that forces people to spill the beans on their crime, and once Albert confesses, that's all the proof anyone will need. When Albert's forced to admit it, Leos steps up to him and tells him he's not the boss anymore. He's immoral, dumb, and heartless, and there's no way they can keep backing a guy like him. But Leos isn't all the way done yet. The former boss did name Albert as his successor, so Leos is giving him one last shot to redeem himself. Here's the deal. If Albert fights Null and wins, he gets to keep running the Gambino family. But Leos knows Albert doesn't stand a chance against Null, so he gives him the option to choose someone else to fight for him. Albert, being a coward, refuses to take part in this trial. But then out of nowhere, Finocchio walks in. Turns out, Null invited her to witness the duel. Now Albert's got no choice but to go along with it. Finocchio's been scheming to get Albert off his back for a minute, so when Null came up with this plan, Finocchio was all in, no questions asked. On top of that, if Null pulls this off, Finocchio's throwing him 50 million. Albert's calling Finocchio out, claiming he's the mastermind behind all this, but Finocchio snaps back, denying it hard. He's had enough of Albert's whining and straight up tells him to stop wasting time and pick someone to fight for him. If Albert drags this out, Finocchio warns the fallout's gonna hit way harder. Albert finally gives in and agrees to choose a fighter. Finocchio lays it down if Albert's fighter wins. Albert's back as the head of the Gambino family, no questions asked. On top of that, Finocchio will let the chaos Albert caused at the secret tavern slide. But Albert better move fast and make his choice or else. Albert takes a quick look around before turning to Koga, picking him to fight. Null had this move pegged from the jump. Koga might not be the toughest in the room, but because of his oath to Albert, he can't go against him even if he wanted to. Meanwhile, Alma's itching for a rematch to show she's got more skill than Koga. But Null steps in cocky as ever, saying he's got this covered. Alma tries to talk him out of it, knowing Koga's out of Null's league, but Null's too hyped. He tells her to sit back and watch him handle business. When Null and Koga finally square up, Null notices Koga's all fired up to fight, even though there's no prize for him if he wins. For Koga, the fight's enough. Plus, he figures if Null's so confident, he must be packing some kind of trick, and Koga's ready to see what it is. The energy's electric as they charge at each other. Null leaps into the air, pulling off a move with an ice bullet. Koga manages to counter it, but the blast leaves a massive ice wall around them, locking everyone else out from seeing what's happening. Inside, the fight gets intense. Null's darting around, staying out of Koga's range, dodging his blade. But once Null puts some space between them, Koga shifts into a stance that signals he's gearing up to unleash his super damn flash. That skill of Koga's cranks up his attack power 7 times over when he draws his sword. If Null gets too close, he's risking getting sliced clean in half. But Null ain't sweating it, he's already set things up to make sure he wins. Out of nowhere, Null tosses his gun aside, claiming it's out of ammo. He says he'll finish the fight with the biggest dagger he's got. But first, he hits Koga with something unexpected. Can you do the thug shaker? Koga's caught off guard, straight confused, and asks what the hell Null's talking about. Null ain't serious, though it's all a setup to catch Koga slipping, and it works. Koga hesitates, thinking Null's got some secret move waiting for him. That split second of doubt is all Null needs. Koga finally makes a move slashing at Null's arm. But that's exactly what Null wanted. While Koga's sword gets stuck, Null pulls the blade out of his hands. Koga's stunned, he can't believe Null would go that far to win. But Koga's not down yet. Losing his sword don't stop him. He shoves Null back and makes a mad dash to grab the sword before it even touches the ground. Then Koga lets loose a slash so powerful, it blows the ice dome apart and sends Null flying. Koga thinks it's over and dives in to finish the job, landing what he believes is a killing blow. But instead of cutting Null, he slices into an ice bullet Null had tucked in his pocket. The bullet's effects hit instantly, freezing Koga solid like he's been locked in a freezer. Turns out, everything Null did was to set Koga up for this exact moment. And now that Koga's frozen like he's been inside a meat freezer, Null leaps up and lands a kick that knocks him out cold. Koga's whole life flashes before him as he goes down. As a kid, nobody ever cared enough to have his back, so he never learned to stand up for himself. Then, as a gladiator, he was forced to fight just to survive. He hated every second of it, but those brutal battles made him strong, even how much power he gained deep inside. He stayed that scared little kid who could never fight for himself. All he's ever known is how to take orders. Null gets named the winner, and as Koga's laid out on the ground, he can't help but wish he had the kind of strength Null's got. Despite all the trash Null talks, he's never let anyone stomp on his freedom or ideals, and Koga respects that. Koga ain't getting back up anytime soon, and with the fight settled, Albert's claim to being the Gambino family leader is officially over. Null's work here is done, so he calls out to Finocchio, letting him know he's bouncing. He tells them they can handle Albert however they see fit. Before Null heads out, Leo steps up to show love for his skills in the fight and thanks him for getting rid of Albert. Leo even says that if Null ever needs a favor, he's got his back. But Null shuts that down quick. He tells Leo he's done dealing with the Gambino family for good. After that, Null and Alma head to a nearby building where Alma starts cleaning him up and tending to his wounds. She scolds him for being reckless in the fight, especially with that final kick to Koga's chest. She points out that if Koga had been ready for it, things could have gone south real quick. Null shrugs it off, saying everything turned out fine, so she shouldn't stress over it. But Alma fires back, reminding him that fighting's her job, and his job is to lead, not dive into dangerous fights himself. Null gives her a sincere apology and promises to chill out with the risk-taking. Alma softens a bit and tells him he can count on her to handle the combat when it's needed. Right then, Finocchio walks in grinning as he congratulates Null on a job well done. But he's got something on his mind. Null, always on point, asks if it's about his payment. He makes it clear he's not about to let anyone play him out of his 50 million. Finocchio laughs it off, saying he wouldn't dare shortchange Null. This whole setup worked out perfectly for him. He got rid of an incompetent rival without lifting a finger, so Null earned every cent. But Finocchio has something else to discuss, something private. He asks Alma to step out of the room for a moment so he can talk to Null one-on-one. Null tells Alma it's all good, so she steps out of the room. As soon as the door closes, Finocchio drops the small talk and goes straight for it. He wants Null to join the Luciano family. He's making big promises too, saying he'll treat Null like royalty. If Null's into it, Finocchio is even ready to hand him leadership of the Gambino family. Null can't help but laugh at the idea and reminds Finocchio he's just 16. How's a kid like him supposed to run an entire family? But Finocchio waves that off, saying age doesn't mean a damn thing. The only thing that matters is that Null's got the guts to pull it off. Null agrees he's got what it takes but makes it clear he's already turned this offer down before. By now, Finocchio should know Null's not about to work under anyone. Finocchio gives Null one last shot to reconsider. Null doesn't flinch, his answer is the same. That's when Finocchio's tone shifts. He informs Null that his class isn't a rank punisher, which gives him access to a unique and deadly skill. Suddenly, Null feels it's something seriously wrong. He looks up, and there it is. Finocchio is literally holding Null's heart in his hand. Null checks his chest, and sure enough, no heartbeat. Finocchio, all smug, starts explaining his judgment skill. This ability lets him rip out someone's heart without their consent if they refuse a request from him twice. Even though Null's heart is out of his chest, he's still alive, thanks to the skill's spatial link. But here's the catch: if Finocchio steps more than 4 meters away or crushes the heart, it's game over for Null. Finocchio tells Null straight up he's too dangerous to leave unchecked. Sooner or later, Null's gonna become a problem for the Luciano family. Null asks if this means Finocchio's planning to take him out now before he can grow into a threat. Finocchio doesn't even deny it. But before making his move, Finocchio gives Null one final shot. He asks him again to join the Luciano family. Null bursts out laughing defiant as ever, and says there's no way in hell he's ever gonna say yes. He gets up mad as hell, but Finocchio calmly tells him there's no point in trying to fight because Null's heart isn't going back into his chest unless Finocchio decides to undo the skill. But Null isn't about to back down. He keeps stepping closer, locking eyes with Finocchio, and declares that he will become the greatest seeker the world's ever seen, so great that the Luciano family won't even be able to touch him. With that kind of fire, Finocchio's not wrong when he says the best move might just be to kill Null now. Null dares him to do it but throws in a reminder. If Finocchio kills him, he's admitting he's nothing but a coward. A guy too scared to face Null once he's strong, so he'd rather take him out while he's weak. Whether Finocchio pulls the trigger or not, Null makes one thing crystal clear: he bows to no one. And here's the kicker though, Finocchio is literally holding Null's heart in his hand. Null's got him by the throat with fear. Finocchio switches up real quick, laughing it off like he was only joking about killing him. He puts Null's heart back in his bag, throws out a half-hearted apology for the misunderstanding, and turns to leave. But before he steps out, he looks back and says, "You better back up all that big talk, kid. If you're gonna make it to the top, you'd better mean it." With that, Finocchio's out. As he's heading out the door, he locks eyes with Alma, who looks like she's one breath away from tearing him apart after the stunt he just pulled. But she doesn't move. But one day she's gonna rip those nails. So Finocchio keeps it moving, heading back to his carriage, where Albert's waiting. The moment Albert sees him, he starts begging for his life, tears and snot everywhere. Finocchio's disgusted, honestly. It's pathetic. But then an idea hits him and he smirks. He tells Albert he's not gonna kill him. But then he leans in close and asks, "Ever seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie?" The look on Albert's face says it all. He's in for something worse than death. The next day, Null meets up with Koga and casually shows him the contract of subordination that makes Koga his slave. Koga assumes Null's about to claim him as his master, but Null shuts that down quick. He's got no use for a slave like Koga. Sure, Koga's got some strength, but when you stack him up against the top seekers out there, he's still way out of his league. And Null, he's aiming for the top spot in the seeker world. He doesn't have time to babysit someone still finding their way. He needs someone fierce, someone who's ready to tear through anything in his path. Null hands Koga the contract and tells him he's free now. He can do whatever he wants, no strings attached. But Koga's spent his whole life being controlled by others, so when freedom lands in his lap, he's not sure how to handle it. There's one thing he's sure of though: he wants to stay by Null's side and see him achieve his dream. And if Null needs a wolf by his side, then that's exactly what Koga will become. He asks Null to let him join Blue Beyond, and Null agrees without hesitation. Soon after, the team heads out on their first mission. Their synergy is almost flawless. Null leads the way, giving orders and offering support. Koga carves through enemies, while Alma clears the field to make room for him to strike. Everything's running smooth until Koga tries to take down the monster general, and Alma swoops in and finishes the job first. That sets them off, and they start arguing over it. Null steps in and shutting it down. He reminds them they're on the same team and need to work together. He tells Alma to focus and stop causing problems during fights. Then he turns to Koga, pointing out there's no scoreboard here, it's about winning, not keeping count of who gets the kills. Despite the hiccup, their first mission as a team is a big success. Null tells them that as soon as they return to Atria, he's registering them as an official clan. Being a clan means they'll be recognized by the state. No more middlemen, no commission fees, just direct access to quests and opportunities. As he talks about the future, Koga notices something on Null's arm and points it out. Alma sees it too, it's the B rank mark. She makes a comment about wishing it had shown up somewhere more noticeable, but Null doesn't care. For him, this is proof that he's getting closer to his damn goal of becoming the strongest seeker in the world. The story shifts back in time, and we see Null running the show, giving his maids directions on how to keep the business running smoother. Then this old man walks in and introduces himself as Harold Jenkins, the guild supervisor. Null pours the man some wine and Harold takes a sip. He's feeling it, says the wine's good, and guesses Null's winery must be doing all right. Null shrugs it off, saying things are okay. He's getting by thanks to his granddad's inheritance and the crew his granddad left behind. Harold's watching Null and figures he's got a natural gift for leading people. But Null waves that off too. He says he's not doing anything big and plans to step back soon, letting the servants take over the business. Then Null flips the vibe, gets serious, and straight up asks Harold what he wants. He reminds him he already told the guild everything about the disaster that hit his town. Harold pulls out a photo of some abyssal beast and says, "This here is the same lord that showed up in your town." Null doesn't look shocked. He's been knowing the beast's still out there because when his granddad died, two things went missing: the Lord's body and his granddad's battle axe. Null asks Harold if the beast has been taken care of, but Harold drops the bad news. A crew called Night Rage went after it and got wiped out. By the time they sent the Supreme Dragon clan, the Lord had already dipped back into the void. Null's surprised to hear that, and Harold explains what folks believe. These beasts normally attack out of raw instinct, but this one it might have shown up on purpose. Harold points out that this is the same Lord that took down Overdeath, and its recent moves could have leveled it up into a new variant. Null puts 2 and 2 together, realizing this beast might be as powerful as the 10 Dark Lords chilling at Abyssal Depth 13, and he remembers each of those lords had enough juice to wipe out their entire world. Harold then drops some history. The last time a variant showed up was 40 years ago. That was Cocytus, the silverfish. It took out 3 whole nations like snapping fingers, but eventually got put down by Overdeath's crew, the Bloodsword Federation. Harold adds that was the first time anyone ever took down a variant. Before that, everyone thought the only way to deal with these beasts was to shove them back into the abyss. Null starts piecing it together. This beast might unleash a disaster that could wreck humanity. Instead of worrying, he smirks, finding the idea interesting. Harold notices that grin and thinks to himself how much Null reminds him of his grandfather. Harold starts talking, saying he used to be an inspector working with the Bloodsword Federation, and he knew Null's grandfather well. He explains he dropped by to check in on Null, but says he's got nothing to worry about now. Then he brings up how Null's turning 15 next year and can officially begin his journey as a Seeker. Harold tries to leave, but Null stops him, telling him to remember his face. Null declares he's gonna be the strongest Seeker ever. Now back in the present, we find Blue Beyond hanging out in a room, waiting for an inspector to check their clan application. Null tells Koga to stay calm and answer the questions straight, but Koga's sweating bullets, wondering what'll happen if he ticks the inspector off. Null says it's no big deal, but Alma makes it worse, saying their application's gonna get rejected if Koga screws up. That freaks Koga out even more. He's thinking there's no way he can mess up Null's dream. Alma, though, she's messing with him, saying if he does mess up, he'll have to kill himself to make up for it. She's low-key hoping he'll die so she can have Null all to herself. Null steps in, trying to calm them both down. Right then, they feel a dark, heavy vibe in the air. They tense up, ready for trouble, but it's only Harold stepping into the room. He tells them to chill. There's no need to be on edge. Harold takes a look at their application and spots the clan house and the 20 million fee. He's impressed they've clearly done their homework. Null pipes up, saying he and Alma are planning to rank up once the clan is official. Harold notices their clan's name doesn't match their party's name. Null tells him he's planning to switch up the party name as soon as they lock in the clan. Then Harold drops the hammer. He rejects their application. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the Vice Clan Master of Supreme Dragon, a Regalia clan with a 1-star rank, has soloed a Depth 12 Abyssal Beast. His name's Zeke Feinstein, the Innocent Blade. Back in the room, Harold explains why he rejected them. He says they're on the hunt for stronger Seekers right now, and Blue Beyond doesn't meet his standards. Null asks Harold what changed. Harold breaks it down, saying they've picked up on a massive mana presence out west near the border. He explains that the underground mana flow is hitting critical levels, and it's only a matter of time before it blows. When it does, a massive abyss will open up, and at depth 13, a variant lord is going to show up. Koga pipes up, asking if they can't just stop it, but Harold shuts that down, saying trying to stop it would trigger even worse disasters. Alma then asks if it's possible to defeat the variant. Harold says they managed to take down Cocytus before, and that's why the Empire is thriving now. But he's real about it. The fight this time will need a huge coalition, with the best Seekers on the front lines. Even though they're all strong, Harold admits that after seeing a variant up close, he's not sure they'll win even with all that power. Then Harold makes it clear they can't share any of this with anyone, and once again, he rejects their application, saying the guild doesn't have the resources to train rookies like them. Null takes the rejection in stride and heads out, his determination reminding Harold of Overdeath, Null's grandfather. The scene switches to the town, where Koga asks Null if he's giving up on forming a clan. Null scoffs, calling Koga stupid, and says this is their chance to make a big move. In a quiet, abandoned alley, Null explains that while a variant could wipe out humanity, it's also a huge blessing. He reminds them how defeating Cocytus raised the Empire's standard of living overnight. Turns out, Cocytus's heart is being used to purify water for the entire nation. Null lays it out. Taking down advanced beasts isn't just about survival. It's what drives advancements in magic-engineered civilization. That's why Seekers are treated like heroes. Then he drops the plan. They need to become one of the Regalia clans fast. Koga freaks, saying it's way too soon, they don't even have a clan yet. Alma remembers Null saying earlier that they'd join the Regalia in a year. But Null, he's speeding things up. He says they're gonna do it in half a year. He tells them they'll gain enough experience in the next few months to stand out as a clan. Ideally, they'll even get called to fight a variant within the year. If they take down that beast, their names will be legendary, etched into history as some of the strongest seekers ever. That's why there's no time to waste. Null figures they need to stack up skills and knowledge before they even form their clan if they want a shot at joining the Regalia. While thinking it over, Null hears a newspaper vendor yelling about Zeke taking out a Depth 12 Lord. That gives him an idea. He realizes they need a spectacle, something big and dramatic to grab the public's attention and give people a story they won't forget. He tells his crew he'll cook up a plan. Next, we see Null ranking up and picking a subclass strategist. A gnome helps him through the process. Afterward, Null breaks down what being a strategist means: boosted brainpower, the ability to analyze fights in real time, and making snap calls based on predictions. Later, Null's walking through town and spots Zeke surrounded by a group of women, all trying to get him to grab some white coffee with them. Zeke notices Null walks over and surprisingly knows who he is. Null puts on the nice guy act, greeting Zeke politely. He casually drops some knowledge about the city's top seekers, saying there are 3 X ranks around. First is Victor Crosser, the beginning one and master of Supreme Dragon. Then there's Leo Eden, the King Slayer and master of Pandemonium. And finally, there's Zeke Feinstein, the Innocent Blade. Zeke recognizes Null as Overdeath's grandson and even remembers hearing about him taking down the Gambinos. Null tries to play dumb, denying it was him, but Zeke isn't buying it. He says the Gambinos got overthrown right after Null had a run-in with their boss. Zeke's sure Null was behind it and wonders what kind of tricks he pulled. Null drops the act and straight up asks why Zeke's dancing around the real issue instead of saying what he wants. Zeke admits he's trying to recruit Null for his clan. Null shuts him down instantly. He's got no interest in working under anyone. Zeke, unfazed, says he's the type of guy who'll do whatever it takes to get what he wants. That's when Null realizes Zeke's not afraid to use force. Smirking, Null challenges him, telling him to show what he's got. He says if Zeke wants him to follow orders, he'll have to prove he's the strongest first. He's talking about how there are 3 X rank seekers in the city right now, but Victor's getting up there in age, so that leaves 2. He's trying to figure out which of the 2 is the top dog, and Zeke catches on Null wants him to step up and prove he's stronger than Leo. Null's looking to bring him in, but Zeke's thinking an all-out fight between him and Leo would end with one of them 6 feet under. He straight up tells Null that he's shady. Null brushes it off and dips. And some guys roll through, and one of them spots Zeke, calling him out as the second toughest seeker in the whole city. That hits Zeke's nerve. He's pissed and presses the guy, asking why he'd say something like that. The guy explains, well, Leo's taken down more lords solo than you have. Zeke snaps and sends the guy flying. Null, watching from the sidelines, picks up on it. Being called second best is Zeke's weak spot. Null decides he'd better form a clan fast before Zeke causes any more drama. Meanwhile, Alma's training with Lysha. Lysha wipes the floor with her. Afterward, she tells Alma you're not cut out for backline work. You get too fired up and don't even notice when you're in range for an attack. She breaks it down. Being a backliner means keeping the battlefield in check and staying aware of everything. She says Null's a prime example of that. Alma starts thinking maybe she's better off being an assassin instead. Lysha agrees but reassures her, saying that while party balance is important, Null knows how to use her strengths no matter what. That's when Ophelia, another elf, shows up. She's hyped to see Lysha, and they hug it out since it's been a minute. Ophelia notices Alma and asks if she's the new recruit. Lysha smiles and says no, this is my best friend. She just joined as a seeker, so I'm showing her the ropes. Lysha then introduces Ophelia, mentioning she's with a party called the Winged Knights and that they're both from the same village. Ophelia's whole crew rolls up next. She introduces them one by one. Vaslav, the summoner, Kine, the lancer, and their leader Lyon Frederick. Ophelia turns to Alma and says she's welcome to hit them up if she ever needs anything. Alma thanks her, but Ophelia brushes it off, saying it's what fellow seekers are supposed to do, especially with some shady folks trying to throw their weight around. She starts dropping tea about Null, calling him out as the leader of Blue Beyond and warning Alma to steer clear of him. According to Ophelia, he sold his own crew as slaves and made deals with the mob. She paints him as nothing but bad news and even says he's got some new members now, but she's sure they're no better than him. Alma listens with a smirk, clearly amused, but Lyon steps in and cuts Ophelia off. He tells her it's not right to judge someone she doesn't even know. Ophelia backs down and apologizes, and the crew heads out. Lysha looks at Alma and says sorry for Ophelia running her mouth. Alma waves it off, saying it doesn't bother her since most of what Ophelia said was true anyway. Later, Null is chilling with Loki, and we find out Null had him dig up a list of all the B-rank parties. One party from the west catches Null's eye. Loki knows about them too and says they've got a rep for being humble and reliable. He's surprised they're still not a clan. Turns out they're talking about Lyon's crew, the Winged Knights. Loki goes on, saying their leader Lyon isn't just good looking, he's crazy strong. In fact, Loki thinks Lyon might be the top B-rank seeker. Loki then remembers Null hit B-rank too and congratulates him. But Null brushes it off. He knows it's just Loki blowing smoke. Null shifts gears, deciding to use Lyon as a stepping stone. He figures everyone's got a weak spot, and he's dead set on finding Lyon's. He mutters to himself about how once you crack someone at their weak point, they start falling apart. Loki notices the nasty look on Null's face and calls him out for it. But Null shrugs, saying he'll do whatever it takes to claw his way to the top. First up, Null's got recruiting on his mind. He heads straight to the prison to meet Hugo Capelia. Hugo gets pulled out of his cell and brought to a spot where he can talk with Null. The moment Hugo walks in, Null clocks the fact that the man's looking way thinner than the last time he saw him. It hits him hard. If Hugo keeps dodging the food here, he's gonna waste away. And that's the last thing Null's trying to let happen. Null's been eyeing Hugo for a while now. Hugo's not just anyone, he's an elite puppeteer, one of the best to ever do it. The problem is, he's sitting on death row accused of some nasty crime. Back when he was free, though, the dude was a legend. Puppeteers aren't your average fighters. They mix creativity and combat, using puppets to adapt to any fight. Hugo's name carried weight in the Seeker world, but he was a lone hero, never rolling with a crew. At one point, he stepped away from the Seeker life to focus on crafting puppets full-time. He was good too, real good, but then everything went south when he got locked up. Hugo tells Null it's a waste of time trying to recruit him. What's the point? I'm as good as dead. But Null's not hearing it. He's got a plan to spring Hugo, and to prove it, he snaps his fingers and calls for tea from a nearby guard. What's wild is, the guard doesn't hesitate and follows through. At first, Hugo thinks Null must have slid the guard some cash. But Null sets him straight, he's got dirt on them. Blackmail's the name of the game, and with it, Null's pulling all the strings right now. He makes it clear, he's dead serious about getting Hugo out of this joint. Hugo wants his freedom back, but teaming up with Null, that's a whole other thing. Hugo's got no love for Seekers. In his eyes, they're a bunch of reckless liars, always faking their strength. And Null, he's worse, cold, ruthless, the kind of guy who'd snatch your fries without thinking twice and do whatever it takes to hit his goal. Null takes that jab as a win, smirks, and stands up to leave. But before heading out, he makes one thing clear, he's not giving up until Hugo's rolling with his crew. Later, Null links up with Alma and Koga at the Rock Hard Tavern. It's their new meetup spot from now on. Koga's hesitant, though this joint's only for B-rank seekers. But with Null and Alma both rocking B-rank status, their squad's got the credentials to walk in without a hitch. The moment Null and his crew step into the spot, every head in the room turns their way. It's their first time here, and folks are clocking them right off the bat. But one dude in particular, this big guy named Edgar, isn't feeling their vibe at all. He stomps over to Null ready to start some drama. First thing out of Edgar's mouth, he calls Null a coward for having a pretty untouched face. Null doesn't flinch. Instead, he fires back, saying the only reason Edgar's got a mug full of scars is because he's trash in a fight. That hits a nerve, and Edgar's fists are twitching. But Null ain't worried, he's got a trump card. Null starts dropping info that stops Edgar in his tracks. His home address, the fact that his wife's pregnant, and even the name he picked out for his baby. Edgar's floored. How the hell do you know all that? Null doesn't bother answering. Instead, he leans in and says calm as can be, how tragic it'd be if Edgar's house caught fire with his pregnant wife inside. Then he gives Edgar the green light to throw the first punch if he's feeling brave enough to risk it. Edgar backs off quick, not willing to gamble with his family's safety. With the whole bar still locked on him, Null takes the chance to introduce himself loud and clear, making sure nobody's gonna step to him again. Then the crew settles at the bar, but Null doesn't let them get too comfortable. He reminds them they've got a job to do, and sure enough their target walks in right on cue. The Winged Knights roll in and head for their table, but one of them, Ophelia, spots Alma at the bar. She's caught off guard seeing her there. Null uses his telepathic talker skill to ask Alma what's up, and Alma breaks it down she met Ophelia once during training. They're not friends or anything, but they crossed paths. Alma also drops a warning. Ophelia can't stand Null, and that's music to his ears. Makes stirring the pot way easier. Null doesn't waste a second. He steps up, introduces himself as Null Stalin, and as soon as the name leaves his mouth, Ophelia's smile vanishes. Her face twists in rage, and she starts yelling about how he sold his own party members as slaves. Null stays cool, saying he doesn't regret a thing and wouldn't hesitate to do it all over again if it meant achieving his goals. That's the last straw for Ophelia. She lunges at him. But before she can even get close, Koga steps in, grabs her wrist, and calmly warns her. If she wants to get to Null, she's gonna have to go through him first. And if it comes to that, he's more than ready to draw his blade. Just then, Lyon catches the commotion and comes over quickly to see if Ophelia's okay. But Null cuts in, saying Ophelia's the one who started it. She just tried to attack him out of nowhere, so of course his crew had his back. Hearing it laid out like that, Ophelia realizes how bad it sounds. She apologizes to Lyon for losing her temper, and Lyon in turn apologizes to Null on behalf of his teammate. Null brushes it off, saying you can't expect much from a useless elf. That comment doesn't sit right with Lyon though. Sure, Ophelia might have overreacted, but that doesn't give Null the right to insult her. Null doesn't back down. He basically tells Lyon he's just a useless, stuck-up jerk if he thinks he can lecture Null on how to act. Lyon's pissed but keeps his cool. Instead of escalating, he turns around and leaves with his group. Once Lyon's out of sight, Koga turns to Null and asks if he really needed to go that hard, especially since Lyon seemed like he was genuinely trying to make peace. But Null's got it all figured out, it's part of his bigger plan. He explains the details to Koga and Alma, and they're both stunned at just how ruthless Null's scheme is. But Null doesn't flinch. He lays it out for them. In the Seeker world, it's survival of the fittest. The weak don't always lose, it's the ones who get cocky who end up falling the hardest. And Null, he's planning to use Lyon and his crew as stepping stones to level up his game. Meanwhile, in Harold's office, his granddaughter straight up asks him who he wants as the raid captain for the upcoming Valiant Abyss. Harold calls her out, saying it's rude to talk to him like that, he's still her superior, even if he's her grandpa. Marion doesn't care and just tells him to answer the question. She thinks the job should go to Leo Eden. He's a lazy bastard, but his strength is unmatched. Zeke's another option, but in her opinion, there's no way he can measure up to Leo. Harold says he thinks Null will end up as raid captain. Marion's floored. She reminds him that Null's clan application was already rejected, but Harold's sure Null will find a way to pull it off anyway. Harold's so sure of himself, he even makes a bet with Marion about it. If Leo Eden ends up as raid captain, I'll quit my job and go sell hot dogs on a beach in Florida. But if Null pulls it off and becomes raid captain, you gotta go to etiquette school. Marion doesn't love the idea of sitting through etiquette school, but she's not the type to back down from a bet, so she agrees. Later that night, Kine's walking down the street when he spots two drunk guys chatting about their dreams, and it takes him back to his childhood with Lyon. Lyon's always been a good-hearted guy, almost too good for his own good. Back in their village, he used to get picked on by the local troublemakers because he kept snitching on them. Lyon thought he was doing the right thing, those guys were stealing after all, but the delinquents didn't see it that way and planned to rough him up even more. Before they could though, Kine stepped in. The bullies bolted the moment they saw Kine. Afterward, Kine asked Lyon why he didn't fight back. Lyon was a swordsman, so he could have taken them all down in no time. But Lyon shook his head, saying it didn't feel right to fight violence with violence. That's when Kine realized Lyon was serious about wanting to do the right thing, so he suggested they become seekers. Kine says there's nothing more righteous than taking out the monsters crawling out of the abyss. Years later, they did just that. They formed a party and were battling a monster in the forest when Lyon hesitated to finish it off. Kine was holding the beast back, and Lyon didn't want to risk hitting him with his ultimate move. Kine, always the bold one, told him not to worry. I'll dodge at the last second, just take the shot. Lyon hesitated but trusted Kine's confidence. He went in with his finishing slash and completely obliterated the monster, clearing the abyss. It was their first time clearing a level 7 abyss. While the rest of the crew was celebrating, Lyon rushed to check on Kine, making sure he was okay. Luckily, Kine was fine, and he knew this win would boost their party's reputation. They'd originally named themselves Twilight Glint, but everyone agreed that name sucked. People started calling them the Winged Knights instead, inspired by Lyon's ultimate move. There's no question Lyon is the heart of their team. Fast forward to the present, and Kine's sitting at a bar with Lyon, asking why he got so worked up earlier when he confronted Null. Lyon doesn't really know why he got so worked up earlier, but Kine has a pretty good guess. It's probably jealousy. Null's a new seeker, but he's already climbed to B rank and walks around like he owns the place. After thinking it over, Lyon realizes Kine's right, he is jealous of Null. but that doesn't mean he's bitter about it. He actually respects the grind and determination Null must have had to rise through the ranks so fast. Kine's glad Lyon can sort out his feelings, but just because Null's talented doesn't mean they should sit back and let him leave them in the dust. He pulls out a letter he got from the guild. It says all capable parties should consider forming a clan, and Kine thinks this could be the perfect opportunity for their group to grow stronger. Turns out, everyone in the party got the same letter, including Lyon. Lyon was actually planning to bring it up when he called everyone to the bar earlier, but after that whole mess with Null, he left before he could. The group's already agreed to go with whatever Lyon decides, so he makes the call they're forming a clan. The next day, Lyon and Kine head to the guild to submit their application, but Harold shuts them down. Lyon's confused. Their party meets all the requirements, so why reject them? Harold explains that under normal circumstances, their application would have gone through. But with a Valiant set to appear in a year, the guild's only granting clan titles to parties that can jump straight into the fight. Kine fires back, saying that's not an issue. Their team just took down a level 7 abyss on their own, they're more than ready. But Harold presses him. If they're so capable, why didn't they apply for clan status right after that big win? Harold says that's the problem. Lyon's party isn't serious enough about getting stronger. Without that obsessive drive to improve, they won't be ready to face the Valiant in a year. Kine's pissed. He asks Harold why he even sent them the letter if he was just gonna reject them. Harold takes a look at the letter and says he didn't send it. Someone must have sent it as a prank. With nothing left to talk about, Harold ends the interview. But before he leaves, Lyon steps up and pleads for another chance to prove their worth. After a moment, Harold agrees. He'll give them a shot, but only if they pass a test. The test defeat a level 8 abyss monster. If they can do that, Harold will accept them as a clan. But there's a twist, another party also begged for a second chance. So this won't just be a test, it's a competition. The Winged Knights will be going head to head with Blue Beyond. Harold sits both groups down and breaks the rules down real clear for everyone. He tells them the goal is to take out this level 8 abyss monster called the Dantalion. Now this thing ain't no regular beast that's tough because it can read your mind. And on top of that, it's got this twisted, sadistic streak. Every seeker who's failed to kill it. They didn't just lose, they got tortured to death by that thing. Harold lays it out straight. The first crew to take down the Dantalion wins. But to keep things tight and avoid anyone twisting the rules, someone asks if that means they can mess with the other team. That's when Lyon steps in, saying his squad's got a hard rule: no killing people. Harold calms him down, explaining murder is off limits since the guild forbids it. Still, Harold makes it clear you can mess with the other team if it gives you an edge, just don't cross the line where someone ends up dead. You've got to make sure the other crew can walk away from the fight no matter what. To keep everyone honest, Harold's gonna use his special skill to keep an eye on the whole competition. That way, nobody can cheat without getting caught. Nobody's raising a fuss about the rules so far. But then Null speaks up with a condition. He says it's only fair if everyone starts the competition in top fighting shape. Harold's cool with that, and since nobody else has anything to add, he moves on. Harold makes it crystal clear. This competition is a one-shot deal. There won't be no do-overs. To make sure everyone brings their A game, he's throwing in a serious penalty. The losing team, they're done. Their squad gets disbanded and they're banned from putting it back together. If anyone tries to dodge this punishment, they'll lose their Seeker's license. Harold asks one last time if they're all sure they want to go through with it. Null doesn't even blink, he signs his name without hesitation. After checking with Kine, Lyon signs too. With that, Harold locks it in. The competition is set for 3 days from now, so they better get ready. Before heading out, Lyon shakes Null's hand and tells him straight up, "I'm bringing everything I've got when we face off." Even though Lyon's team is stacked with strength and experience, things just got interesting. Null leveled up and became a strategist. With his sharper thinking, he's already picturing Lyon losing miserably. The big day rolls around, and Harold steps up to welcome both squads, laying down the rules one last time. The challenge is simple. Dive into the abyss and take down a Dantalion. First team to pull it off wins, starting on Harold's signal. Once it kicks off, Lyon's ready to roll. But then he notices something bizarre. Null's squad just plops down and starts having a picnic. Confused, Lyon demands to know what's going on. Null calmly replies, "We're having lunch. You guys can make the first move." Lyon's head is about to explode. He starts yelling at Null to take things seriously. But Kine steps in, telling Lyon to chill, it's not worth wasting energy on him. So the Winged Knights head into the abyss. That's when Ophelia's sharp ears pick up a swarm of monsters closing in, and she warns the group to get ready. But before the fight begins, Vaslov speaks up with something to share. He tells Lyon that before the competition, Null pulled him aside and tried to get him to betray the team. Vaslav shut him down of course, but he's bringing it up now, just in case Null approached anyone else. Turns out Null did. Both Kine and Ophelia admit he came to them too. Lyon's stunned. Null tried to flip everyone in the squad except him, but the team quickly reassures him they'd never turn on him. They laugh it off, saying Null's talk about freedom didn't even make sense. They figure he was just planting seeds of doubt to mess with their heads. Thankfully, they cleared up any confusion fast, because the horde of monsters is on them now. No more talking, it's time to throw down. Meanwhile, back outside the abyss, Null's crew is still chilling, enjoying their picnic like they don't have a care in the world. Harold, watching from the sidelines, has a lot on his mind. Earlier, he admitted to Null that he was impressed by how he tricked the winged knights into playing right into his hands. But Harold made one thing clear: he couldn't overlook the fact that Null forged official guild letters to pull it off. Null straight up asks Harold if he plans to disqualify him for what he did. Harold thinks about it, but decides to let it slide. Then he looks at Null and asks if he really thinks he can win. Null doesn't hesitate, he's 100% confident. Winning is what his grandpa always taught him to do. But in the present, Koga's starting to get uneasy. He points out that they might be wasting too much time here, and there's a real chance the winged knights could actually take down the Dantalion. Null isn't worried though. He reminds Koga that this is all part of the plan. The winged knights are no joke, they're a powerhouse squad. Null knows they've got to play this smart, especially with Lyon in the mix. Lyon's not just a great leader, he's strong, sharp, and makes clutch decisions. And then there's his unique Angel Wings ability. When Lyon activates it, his mana flow cranks up, letting him fire off skills with zero cooldown. It's like he's got a gift straight from the heavens. But sometimes even great talent can become a weight. Null tells Koga and Alma to relax, he's sure they'll come out on top, because he's already planted seeds of doubt that are going to tear the winged knights apart. He made sure everyone but Lyon knows what's coming. Lyon, the guy they all trust, is going to end up betraying them. Before the match, Null had a little chat with Kine at the bar. As soon as Kine spotted him, his mood shifted to full-on hostility. But Null calmly reminded him about the no interference rule. The deal was simple: all participants had to show up in perfect fighting shape. So technically, Null talking to him like this wasn't breaking any rules. But if Kine tried to throw hands, that would have been a violation. With that out of the way, Null cut to the chase. He asked Kine to betray Lyon. Kine couldn't help but laugh hard. He couldn't believe Null thought it would be that easy to flip him. Still, curiosity got the better of him, and Kine asked what he'd get in return. Null's answer was simple: freedom from Lyon. That stopped Kine's laughter dead in its tracks. Seeing he had Kine's attention, Null kept going. He pointed out how unbalanced the winged knights are. Almost all their strength comes from Lyon. Even if they formed a clan, they'd never keep up with him, no matter how hard they worked. Lyon's raw talent would always leave them in the dust. Kine admits that Null's got a point about Lyon being the strongest in the crew, but he's still all in to support Lyon because they're like brothers, sworn loyalty and all that. But as Kine was heading out of the bar, Null dropped one last warning. If Kine didn't betray Lyon, Lyon was going to betray him first. Back in the present, the squad is throwing down with the Dantalion. They've already wiped out all the smaller monsters, but this thing can read minds, so making progress is tough. Vaslav tries to catch it off guard with a fire spell, but the Dantalion dodges it easily. Sneak attacks won't work when it knows your every move. The only one who can keep up is Lyon, thanks to his Angel Wings skill making him fast enough to fight the Dantalion on even ground. Then the Dantalion leaps into the air with a handful of rocks. Lyon sees what's coming and yells out a warning right before the monster unleashes a hailstorm of stone. Outside the abyss, Koga can hear the chaos inside and asks Null if they're really just gonna sit back and do nothing. Null stays calm and tells him they're waiting until the winged knights are pushed to their limit before stepping in. After the hailstorm, most of the winged knights are still holding it together, but Ophelia's been taken down, lost an arm from those rocks. The Dantalion starts celebrating when it sees it managed to seriously mess someone up. But Lyon's not letting Ophelia go out like that. He orders the rest to retreat with her while he holds the monster off. Lyon throws up his holy shield to keep the Dantalion busy. The monster mocks him, calling Lyon a strong toy while saying the others are too weak to win. Lyon doesn't argue, admits they're not strong enough right now, but he's a seeker who never gives up. Even if they can't win today, he's gonna keep fighting. He uses his invincible skill to blind the Dantalion for a second and makes a break for it, catching up to the rest of the squad. Hidden behind a barrier, Vaslav gets to work with healing magic to reattach Ophelia's arm. Thankfully, she starts feeling it again, but she still can't move it much, so using her bow is off the table for now. Ophelia apologizes to Lyon for being such a burden. but Lyon quickly shuts her down, telling her there's no need to worry about that. Still, as much as it pains him to say it, he starts to admit they might need to give up on defeating the Dantalion. Before he can finish, Kine cuts him off. He's got a plan. He'll act as a decoy to draw out the Dantalion, and once he does, Lyon can hit it with his ultimate slash attack. Lyon immediately says no. That attack will burn through the last of his mana, and since it's an area of effect move, there's a high chance he'll hit the rest of the squad too. But Kine reminds him this is exactly how they took down that level 7 monster before, and right now it's their only shot. Vaslov's concealment spell is keeping them hidden for now, but attacking from inside the barrier will shatter the spell. A sneak attack from here isn't on the table. Kine says he'll try to lure the Dantalion as far away as possible to keep everyone safe, and he's not planning on dying either. He swears he'll dodge at the last second, just like before. Kine's confident, telling Lyon everything will be fine, but Lyon shakes his head. That plan won't work. The Dantalion can read minds. It'll figure out that Kine's just a decoy the second he moves. Frustrated, Kine asks Lyon what he wants to do then. If they retreat now, they lose the competition, and their party gets disbanded. Lyon takes a breath and says there's another way. He suggests teaming up with Null. The rest of the squad stares at him in disbelief. Kine explodes, shouting that Null's their enemy, and there's no way they can join forces with him. Lyon stays firm. He explains that if they work with Null, they might not get approved as a clan, but at least they can avoid disbanding the team. Most importantly, no one will have to sacrifice themselves. For Lyon, that's the only right choice. Kine doesn't care about doing the right thing right now. What really stings is that Lyon seems to trust Null more than him. Lyon, realizing how bad things are, admits that right now, Null's the one who's more likely to come through than Kine is. That hits Kine like a ton of bricks. He walks up to Lyon and stabs him in the gut. He admits he's been jealous of Lyon's talent this whole time, but he still thought of him like a brother, so he stuck by him. Kine says he would have given his life for Lyon because he thought Lyon trusted him, but now he just wants out. Before Lyon can respond, the Dantalion lands right in front of the group, and for a second they're all frozen with fear. But then something unexpected happens. The Dantalion isn't coming for them. It's after Null, who just showed up. Null shoots a bullet to distract it and tells Koga to attack from above. To the Dantalion's surprise, it can't read their minds. Null and the crew had been training for this. They've been using his mind link skill, so now they can follow his orders without thinking, making it impossible for the Dantalion to read their thoughts. And as for Null, with his sharp strategist mind, he's thinking so fast the Dantalion can't keep up. The Dantalion starts getting a massive headache from trying to read Null's mind, and in desperation, it rips out its third eye to stop hearing Null's thoughts. But that's exactly what Null was waiting for. Now he can give the signal for Alma to finish the Dantalion off. Alma fires up her acceleration move and dashes in, acting as if she's about to land a blow. But that's a setup, a fake out to bait the Dantalion. As it gears up to counter her, Alma flips the script and pops off her next skill, phasing clean through its hand. That's her phantom skill, a slick trick she picked up after leveling up. It lets her go untouchable once a day, slipping past anything physical. While the Dantalion's wide open, Alma wastes no time. She unleashes a rapid strike and punches a clean hole straight through its chest. The abyss is cleared, and Null's crew snags the win. To top it off, the fight gives Koga the boost he needed to level up, putting him back on equal ground with Null and Alma. Koga's all smug about it, rubbing it in Alma's face, when Kine steps up and says this whole setup must have been part of Null's plan. Null doesn't even bother denying it. He spills the tea. He masterminded everything. He pushed the guild to host the competition, picked the Dantalion because it was the perfect opponent, and even sent out fake letters to stir up the winged knights into chasing the clan dream. Kine is fuming. He grabs Null by the jacket, ready to throw down. But Null stays cool and reminds Kine that their downfall isn't all on him. Kine and the crew did plenty of damage on their own. Jealousy pushed Kine to betray Lyon, and that cracked the foundation of the whole squad. Yes, the winged knights are strong, but Lyon's the only one truly built different. The rest of them were just riding Lyon's coattails, and deep down they all knew it. That buried envy rotted their bond from the inside out. He gave it a little shove. Null breaks it down further. Lyon messed up too. If Lyon had trusted Kine, maybe the betrayal wouldn't have gone down that way. Then Harold rolls in, shutting everything down. He announces Null's team as the winners and makes it official they're now a recognized clan. Meanwhile, the Winged Knights as the losers are disbanded on the spot. The news spreads fast through the capital. Folks are shook, especially since the Winged Knights had a real fanbase out there. But that's the game, and Null played it to perfection. The Winged Knights are in pieces now. Ophelia's done with a seeker life. She doesn't think she's cut out for it. She says her goodbyes to Lysha and walks away. Vaslav, though, doesn't waste a second. That same day, he takes an offer from another crew and moves on. While all that's happening, Null heads over to see Hugo and lay out everything that went down. Hugo isn't too thrilled. He says the Wing Knights were one of the few groups of genuinely good people, and it's a shame they're gone. Null doesn't feel bad about it though. In his mind, the Wing Knights were already falling apart, and all he did was give things a little push to speed it up. Hugo catches on to Null's real game. He figures out Null was after something more, but he's stumped about how crushing the Wing Knights is supposed to convince Lyon to join him. Null's got it all mapped out though. He tells Hugo not to sweat it. He's got a plan to get Lyon on his team. Once Lyon's on board, Null says he'll come back for Hugo too. After dropping that bomb, Null walks out of the prison. Elsewhere in the city, Kine is busy drowning his guilt in booze, trying to kill his liver one drink at a time. He asks the bartender for another round, but the bartender cuts him off. He's worried Kine's spiraling too far. The bartender knows what went down, but he reminds Kine that he's still young and can start fresh with another crew. Kine shakes his head. He can't see a way forward. Thinking back, if Lyon had gone with Kine's plan, it would have been a death sentence. Lyon's choice back then was the only way to protect the group, and Kine stabbed him for it. Kine's stuck in his guilt. He can't forgive himself, and even the bartender doesn't sugarcoat it. He tells Kine straight up he messed up. But wrecking himself with booze isn't fixing anything. The bartender tells him there's something bigger he needs to handle. He's got to set Lyon free. Kine's confused at first, but the bartender explains. Lyon's probably carrying the weight of what happened, blaming himself, and stuck in the past. If Kine really cares about Lyon, he needs to go to him, clear the air, and let him know the truth. Meanwhile, in a dark alley, Lyon's cornered by Edgar and a couple of his crew. Edgar saw the news about the Wing Knights and couldn't pass up the chance to kick Lyon when he's already down. Edgar's been holding a grudge against Lyon for ages. He can't stand how Lyon always had a spotless rep and everybody loved him, while Edgar's been treated like trash. And to be real, that's mostly because Edgar is trash. Now that Lyon's crew is gone and he's got no fight left in him, Edgar figures it's the perfect time to take him down. But before Edgar can make his move, Null and his squad roll up and wipe out Edgar's backup in no time. Edgar's yelling, asking what Null's even doing here. Null plays it cool, saying he's just out for a walk. Edgar isn't buying it and tells Null to bounce because he's in the way. But Null doesn't like the way Edgar's talking, so he tells him to watch his mouth. Edgar takes it as a challenge and gears up for a fight, but his crew isn't as dumb as he is. They know they've got zero chance against Null's squad, so they scatter. Null, not one to let things slide, decides Edgar needs to learn some manners. He chops off Edgar's nose, crushes it under his boot, and leaves Edgar screaming. Then he grabs Edgar by the hair and warns him that if he keeps acting like a scumbag, he'll give his whole family the same new style. Scared out of his mind, Edgar swears he'll behave and bolts. Once Edgar's out of the picture, Null turns to Lyon. He tells him they've got business to discuss and makes his pitch. Null wants Lyon to join his clan. Lyon's stunned, thinking Null's messing with him, but Null assures him he's dead serious. He even offers to make Lyon the clan's vice master. Null sees it as a solid deal, but Lyon shuts him down. He refuses to team up with someone like Null, saying the Winged Knights wouldn't have fallen apart if Null hadn't interfered. Null doesn't argue. He points out that the Winged Knights were always on borrowed time, and Lyon knew it too. Lyon only stood so tall because of his team's loyalty and hard work, but no matter how much effort they put in, they could never match Lyon's natural talent. Eventually, that gap in skill was bound to stir up jealousy and break them apart. Lyon admits Null has a point, but he still can't bring himself to join. Doing that would mean letting go of everything the Winged Knights stood for, and he's not ready to do that. Null asks Lyon if he's really planning to quit over this. He tells him straight if Lyon walks away now, the glory of the Winged Knights is dead and gone. Lyon's got a name out here as a seeker. He could keep that legacy alive, even if people see him as a traitor. Null says this is one time Lyon has to put himself first if he wants to protect what matters most. Lyon can't deny Null's got a point, but before making any moves, he hits Null with a question. He wants to know why Null decided to become a seeker in the first place. Null doesn't hesitate. He says his goal is to become the greatest seeker of all time, no debate, and he'll do whatever it takes to get there. Null's conviction hits Lyon hard, enough to convince him to team up. Lyon doesn't let Null off easy. He tells him straight if Null doesn't back up those words, he'll never forgive him. They shake hands to seal the deal, stepping out of the alley as one crew. Meanwhile, Marion's going over the case file with Harold, and she's not holding back. She calls Null slimy for tearing apart the noblest party around and then snatching their leader for his own squad. Harold agrees it's not the most honorable move, but he's not mad about the outcome. In his eyes, it created a stronger clan, and he's ready to see what they'll accomplish. Harold's already got their next quest lined up. An abyss popped up the other day, depth level 9, the toughest challenge they've ever faced. At the center of it is the ghost-controlling Wolfgarmer. As Null, Lyon, and the rest of the crew walk through the city, people start throwing shade at Lyon, calling him a hypocrite for teaming up with the guy who wrecked his old squad. Null tells him to let it roll off his back. He says once Lyon proves himself, those same people won't have the guts to talk trash anymore. Before they can move on, someone yells Null's name from behind. It's Kine, and he's heated. He blames Null for everything and says he's going to kill him. Lyon steps in between them, trying to calm Kine down. He tells Kine that taking Null out won't fix anything, but Kine's not hearing it. He calls Lyon a traitor and says if Lyon's so determined to protect Null, then Kine will take him down first. Kine leaps at Lyon, forcing him to defend himself, and the tension explodes right there in the street. As Lyon moves to counter Kine, he catches the smirk on Kine's face and realizes what's going on. Kine's pulling this stunt on purpose, trying to boost Lyon's image. Lyon keeps it cool, knocks Kine out as gently as possible, and lays him on the ground. The crowd starts buzzing, hyping up Lyon for his strength and skill, praising how he handled it without even unsheathing his sword. Lyon doesn't feel great about the situation, but he's made up his mind to stick to his own path. He knows there's no turning back now, even if it means Kine ends up hating him. As he walks away, though, he hears Kine quietly wishing him good luck. Lyon wants to turn around and settle things with Kine properly, but Null stops him. He tells Lyon to keep moving. This is exactly what Kine wants. What Lyon needs to do for him now is grow stronger and push forward. Later that day, Null brings the crew to their new clan house. He's grinning, happy about snagging the place for only 20 million. The rest of the group is stunned the price was that low, but Lyon remembers hearing rumors about the place. It used to be an execution ground, and folks say every person who's lived there has been haunted by the ghosts of the dead. Null brushes it off. If anyone's worried about ghosts, he's already got a plan. He pulls out a skill book. He picked up the exorcism skill. It's designed to wipe out any undead on the spot, so the spirits haunting the place won't be a problem. With the housing situation handled, Null brings out a special necklace for everyone. It's a snake with angel wings, and he explains the meaning behind it. The symbol represents the balance of good and evil within their squad. From now on, their crew will be called Wild Tempest. A few days later, Wild Tempest is out on their first mission as a clan facing Garmer. But there's a problem. Garmer keeps summoning waves of ghosts, way too many for Null's exorcism skill to handle. Null starts sweating it, realizing Garmer's strategy. The beast is smart. It's trying to wear them down before going in for the kill. Null tells Koga and Alma to back up Lyon while he handles the ghosts himself with his ultimate Seraph blade. Lyon's not feeling this plan, but Null doesn't give him a choice. He tells him to stick to the move. They all follow Null's orders, launching a perfectly timed attack. They manage to clear out the ghosts, but Garmer is still standing strong, forcing them to fall back into a cave. The crew is wiped out, barely able to move, but there's no break coming. Garmer charges into the cave, growling that he's about to make them his next meal. Before Garmer can do anything, Null steps forward and throws out an offer. He says he's got some valuable info for Garmer if it agrees not to eat them. Garmer's intrigued and asks Null what he's got to share. Null casually pulls a mister from his pocket and sprays it into the air. Garmer looks confused, not seeing how this mist could possibly help him. Turns out, it's not meant to help Garmer, it's meant to take him out. Null sprays a fast-acting poison into the air, specially crafted with Alma's secret juice. This version is deadly for beasts like Garmer, and it starts hitting him immediately. Garmer growls, claiming a little poison isn't enough to stop him. But Null smirks. He's got way more poison lined up in this cave. The buildup is too much, and Garmer collapses to the ground. This was all part of Null's setup. He had everyone act like they were losing to bait Garmer into the cave and let his guard down. Now, with Garmer weakened, Null steps up and lands the final blow, finishing the beast for good. After wrapping up the mission, Null heads back to Harold. Harold congratulates him on Wild Tempest's first big win as a clan, but Null isn't satisfied with just that. He's got his eyes set on the top. He's determined to become the greatest seeker of all time, and as a talker, his first step is turning his clan into the strongest one in the game. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this recap, please hit the like button and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or tweaks, share them in the comments. They help me improve.